Greetings to you all and welcome to the third edition of the URA E-Bomba Your Business 2021 Summit. For this particular year started on 15th September this year, and it's still ongoing up to the 12th of November 2021. And a reminder to all of you watching us in the different spaces where you are, the Uganda Revenue Authority organizes the Bomba Year Summit event annually to reignite the conversation on taxation, on trade, businesses, but also showcase on how the tax body has facilitated businesses over the years. Speaking of over the years in a special way, let's say congratulations to URA on marking 30 years since it was established in 1991. And actually, ahead of marking this celebration, they've done a number of activities across the country in different districts, not only to sensitize Ugandans on the importance of paying taxes, but also give back in one way or another through their corporate social responsibility activities. So we should applaud them, and Uganda as a country is very proud of these activities. To be specific, with the Bomba Year Business Summit, to give information given the times of the pandemic to businesses on how to stay afloat. And of course, for the past 2 weeks of these sessions that have been happening every Friday, a number of topical issues have been discussed that include survival and thriving of businesses amidst the pandemic, investing in real estate, among other rising issues. And this session is not any different because it has a panel of experts in their own league. All of you watching us across social media platforms on the URA TV, you should actually subscribe to the YouTube channel, Twitter Spaces, Facebook, and at the same time, all those watching us on BBS Telefina, we applaud you as an audience, on Baba TV, and of course on Afro Mobile, not forgetting Next Media, which airs this particular E-Bomba Summit 2021 every Wednesdays at noon. My name is Mebo Twegumiezake, and I'm a Ugandan journalist. And for the past 2 weeks, there have been different moderators for these sessions, renowned journalists like me, and the sessions are continuing up to the 12th of November. And before I actually introduce my great panel today, let's recognize the associations that are present for this particular session. Attending, there's the Uganda Manufacturers Association, that is also UMA, Kampala City Traders Association, Kasita, you're welcome, Customs Clearing Agents, they're also here, the Uganda Small Scale Industries Association, that is USSIA, and then the Uganda Freight Forwarders Association, UFA, and not forgetting the University Tax Societies. Those are some of the associations that are actually present. This particular session is going to be basically about trade and investment opportunities in Uganda, from import substitution to clearing and forwarding industry, to build Uganda, buy Uganda, supply chain, to Uganda's existing laws and policies that bolster international trade. And of course, for you as a local investor and for you as a consumer, what is your role in all this? Not forgetting the constant, which is the Uganda Revenue Authority linking us all. So welcome to this session of the URA E-Bomba Your Business 2021. And on my panel, well, I'll introduce to you the Assistant Commissioner Field Services, URA, that is Mr. Asadu Chigozi Chisitu. You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. And then the Managing Director, Geroma Limited, Mr. Francis Otiama, you're also welcome. I always get excited each time I see a female on my panel. Most of the time, if I don't, I feel like I should complain and go up in arms. All right, and of course, I'm introducing the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, Geraldine Sally. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
From Kasita, the chairperson, Thaddeus Musoke Nagenda. Is it Nagenda or Nagenda?
Nagenda.
Thank you so much for coming. And lastly, I'll introduce to you, that is, I beg your pardon for a second, Mr. Muramura Frank.
Yeah, good morning, viewers.
The only man I know who grows apples, at least at the moment, and produces over 30,000 fruits for this country. So thank you so much. He's the Managing Director, Jofra International Forwards Limited, and also a board member on the Uganda Clearing and Forwarding Association. To begin with and also set the stage for this conversation, I'll come to you, Mr. Asadu Chigozi Chisitu, to please give us a brief on import substitution and of course how local industries have fared amidst the pandemic, and also probably talk to us about URA's rules of engagement when it comes to import market.
Thank you very much, Mabel, and the viewers. Welcome to E-Bomba, the third edition. Import substitution and export promotion is a government program that is running to make sure that Uganda comes out of economic dependence. And it is one of the key pillars in the domestic revenue mobilization strategy for the country. And as URA, it is our mandate to make sure that we facilitate our manufacturers and producers who are making sure that instead of spending our money on imports, we produce these goods locally here in the country. And we are, as a government agency, we have put in a lot of initiatives in addition to the policies that government has put in place. But particularly in this era of the COVID-19 pandemic, there were extra areas that were covered to make sure that we become self-reliant in terms of production. And one of the things that government centered on most was to make sure that the items that will help to fight the pandemic of COVID-19 are produced here. Given that there was a whole world supply chain challenge, given this pandemic, it was paramount that the goods are produced in Uganda. So one of the initiatives that were put in place to cover this industry, government relieved taxes on all imports that are used to manufacture items like sanitizers, medical and non-medical face masks, among others. And these, as we speak now, we have over 136 companies producing sanitizers, which were previously being imported into Uganda. And that has not only helped in combating the COVID-19 pandemic, but also in the supply chain, creating jobs to our people in the country. Also, we have companies that have really thrived in this time for import substitution, that of goods that were previously imported. And government relieved the taxes on some of those items so that they can be produced here. We have a duty remission on items that are produced here. Of course, all imports that are raw materials for goods to be produced here attract a 0% rate. Meaning that if you imported a raw material to produce an item here, you are not going to pay import duty. And the other taxes that you pay are accounted for as you make your returns to URA, like VAT, value-added tax, and withholding tax, which is part of the income tax regime. So in so doing, as URA, at the forefront of facilitating these raw materials entering the country, we run a 24-hour program to make sure that our producers, our manufacturers, have their goods in time. So even during the pandemic, it was very evident URA never closed its doors. The trucks were cleared at all the borders of Uganda to make sure these raw materials reach in time so that production can continue. We also ran a program of manufacturing under bond. What does this mean? That there are certain items which would ordinarily attract tax, but because they are being used in the production of goods here in Uganda, they are given an incentive to store them in their premises without paying the tax. And then URA confirms that these raw materials have been used for the production, then they are able to be exempt from this tax. But also additionally, the duty remission, where a manufacturer purchases items from the common market, which are not on the already listed items for exemption by the law, you buy them from the open market, which already, where those items already have tax. Then you are able to account that these, whereas I bought them from the time period was opened for business to continue. And on another initiative to support, there were people who had tax obligations to meet in this period, and they had imports. And you know, when you have an outstanding clearance in the system would automatically switch you off if you have not accounted. So we were able to make sure that we suspend that automatic suspension, so that because the period was unprecedented, and as we call it, it was not planned by anyone. So all that was done to make sure that there is business continuity, but also most especially that local production can continue. And exports were equally facilitated the way imports were facilitated during that time. If there was an exporter who wanted to take their coffee, we made sure that the service was available for them to move these exports, because we know for us to improve our balance of payments, we need to increase our exports. And we specifically targeted that industry as well. And we are also supporting the export-free zones, the industrial parks, which have exemptions, all that geared to making sure that production of previously imported goods is done in our country, and then we benefit from the many, along the chain advantages that come with it. Most importantly, the cost of production goes down, the cost of the item, the employment, and at the end of the day, we increase our gross domestic product. Viewers, those are some of the things as URA we have been able to do, and as a government agency in this time. Thank you.
Well, we do appreciate those highlights from Mr. Asadu Chisitu Chigozi, the Assistant Field Services here at URA, and the fact that some of the business community, of course, is represented by Kasita. It would be fortunate for us at this moment for him to chip in, because otherwise we would think everything was rosy. Of course, we know that the import substitution strategy comes with a couple of challenges, as you kept mentioning some of the things that URA actually did to make it easy for the business community to continue. Would want to listen to you, the chairperson, Kasita, that is Thaddeus Musoke, on if you actually agree that all that did happen for our business community, and then we should also applaud URA for some of these measures that they had to put in place given the times in the pandemic. So, and please don't forget to still tap into the opportunities that Ugandan investors can actually reap from import substitution.
Thank you, Mabel. I want to thank our viewers and the comrades watching E-Bomba, your business. Mr. Thaddeus Nagenda, my names. I want to thank my colleague for the presentation. Sincerely, most of the times when people hear Kasita, they think that most of the times we are supposed to be harsh to URA, but that's not the case. what we agreed with URA that we are supposed to be partners. And most of the achievements, my colleague just forgot that we have been working together to attain
So he
such.
didn't give you a mention.
Yes, because, you know, most of the times we come in to advise on policy level, we engage URA time to time. I want to appreciate URA. They have been very, very dynamic. Lately, they can listen to us. We do engage, and by the way, formulate fair business working environment. Where you find that they are not so cooperative, we come in and we say, no, let us at least engage, let us discuss, and we see how can we protect our businesses. So I want to thank URA for that. And currently, URA is very, very, very efficient. It's very efficient and fast. We do appreciate. There are some loopholes which we shall engage for improvement. So the fact is that import substitution is a government strategy. And we have a challenge in the business community. Some of our members could not understand the essence of import substitution. But like, it's a very brilliant idea for the government and His Excellency, because you find that it has several advantages. You know, like for us in business, I want to simplify business. Business, you solve challenges or problems at a profit or at a cost. So most of the goods we import, you find that we had a lot of market here. And we didn't have such initiatives like E-Bomba. You know, with this E-Bomba, it enriches the business community with government policies, with good ideas, because now the government, if it comes in that, why should we import? Why can't we manufacture the goods here locally? You know, at first we came in as Kasita, we are opposing the president, but he's saying import substitution. But the colleagues like the Chinese, the Indians, they're just assembling. But later through engagements, they told us, but they are using our electricity. They are employing Ugandans for assembling. Then we came in and said, now why are we not favored in this strategy as Ugandans? But that's still a very big challenge to the government. But let me go straight to the benefits. For the benefits, it helps us to improve technology. Like we try to benchmark with our colleagues, because we have to accept other countries in technology, they have improved a lot. And then it helps us also to create employment. Our sisters, our brothers get employed, and it widens exposure to our business community. And then also it eases access to goods. We can easily access goods like now here in Namamve. Most of the goods we can resource from Namave or other industries. And then it helps to improve infrastructure. Like lately when we are launching the new trains, locomotives, I had the presentation from roofing. They are saying, you know, we used to suffer a lot, and we used to overuse road transport. And the materials we import from China are so heavy, the raw materials. But you find that now the government is investing in two-lane transport, but we have overcried for improvement over what? Rail transport, to ease transportation of goods and raw materials. So it helps to improve infrastructure vis-a-vis when URA sees that this field there is more tax revenue. So they make recommendations. And then, of course, Ministry of Finance can easily release money or allocate money for infrastructure development or improvement. And then, you know, when the government comes in and says that let us carry out value addition on local agricultural products here is almost the same as import substitution. Like we used to enjoy coffee from outside, but now we are using our own coffee. We are using our own chocolate. So there are other incentives which have helped our business community to venture into value addition vis-a-vis that's what? Import substitution. And later it will promote exports. So for sure, in brief, import substitution is a very good strategy. what are the challenges? What our recommendations as CASITA? The challenges are very crucial. You find that the president, during the COVID pandemic, when it was so serious, he said that, let us allocate more money to Uganda Development Bank. So we had already made recommendations that there is a big challenge of long-term financing. Just given this period of COVID, our colleagues are losing property because we want to make business. Our role is to make business, our role is to pay taxes, but we have that challenge. So where I will request, the good thing my boss is here. So and she's a very hard-working lady. I'm sure we shall always be at our offices to see what can we do. But there is a very big challenge with limited access to long-term financing. And then we have a problem of capacity. The local capacity is still lacking. And yes, the government, like I said, is a good strategy. But they are over-rushing it. Because I don't know if they are saying that, this Mugole is so good, so let me immediately marry the Mugole. But it's supposed to be a process. Let it be gradual. Like now, like Musoke, I'm in business. But since I'm in business, I'm trying to build my capacity. You know, we try to maneuver all other restrictions and see how do we build our capacity, local capacity as businessmen. And through associations like CASITA, we do play a very vital role. The good thing now the government is recognizing us and then is appreciating our role because we have to change perception change. Perception change is very vital into developing our capacity. Let me give a scenario. During the lockdown, URA had implemented a new tax policy, $1 per kilo on garments. So we engaged them, we engaged the Minister of Finance. I want to thank the Minister of Trade. This time it was on our side. It was on our side. Our ministers, the Permanent Secretary, General Soke, and others. Even the police was on this side, on our side.
For the first time.
And so, how did we urge you out with URA? We do appreciate the strategy, but we are in lockdown. Already by the time I ship my consignment, I'm aware I'm going to pay this. Now I'm home in the lockdown because I'm supposed to respect the presidential directives. And then by the time the lockdown is eased, you come here to clear the goods, but you know nowadays, kilo per dollar system. He said, colleagues, what's the problem? So we engaged, they advised, and they told us the government policy is import substitution. So we had to transfer the message to our traders. At first, the traders said, Ana almost okay. Already, you have got an envelope. How can you support such? But I told them, but the fact is that we in the business community, we do venture into business basing on government policy. Any formal business, any professionally managed business, you are supposed to respect government policies. So now they are saying, but we have several challenges. The capacity. Why am I taking long on this government issue? You find that we made the research and we discovered that the local industries were pressurizing URA, please protect us. But they didn't have capacity to meet the demand of garments here in Uganda. Our research was showing that they can produce on 3% to meet the demand for garments here at the market. So we said, why can't we allow us to import? As we also venture into this, we are not going to leave the import substitution strategy to benefit only foreigners. Also with the locals, we are supposed to move on the same pace. So we agreed, let us import for some time. As we build capacity, we improve technology, we engage like the other challenge of long-term financing, so that we have that capacity. Luckily enough, they gave us a window. We know it will be short-lived because that's the strategy for the government. So we are trying to carry out serious sensitization to make sure how can our local business members utilize import substitution and then not to run out of business. Then another challenge is high operation costs. You find that the electricity costs in Uganda, they are so high. Water, land. And here there is a challenge of land. Our colleagues, the foreign investors, easily access land. But now, like Musoke, to go to Namamve and get an acre, it will be a tug of war. But we wonder, these people are accessing free land. And when we are studying at university and even other schools, because, I don't know, land is part of capital. So these people enjoy free land. And we thought the government, if it provides free land to this investor, it should have some shares into those factories. Alternatives, let us also access those incentives clearly. When we met the president told us, Kasita, you just enjoy enriching Chinese. We told the president, we also want to locally produce the goods here. But we have these challenges. Luckily enough, the president promised us land in the industrial parks. So my boss, I'm coming for that later. I need that land. Now it's 2 years. We need to start seriously local production. And then other challenges. I think at times they try to create monopoly. You find that fewer companies, when they come here, they know there is market. They try to influence so that they complicate other players to join the market. And even some others demand the government protect us until we stabilize, but already when they are making profits. So that also is a little bit a challenge. Corruption. Like I said, you know, now when I do work also with Chinese, when I travel outside the country, they tell us why they love Uganda, that they are carrying out a business called under-the-table business. So that's corruption. So I think that's why I think they are favored a lot. You find that even sometimes they won't sell a lot, but they can easily access all the incentives. I think also it can be noted. Then, low technology, poor infrastructure, we still need improvement of infrastructure. We do appreciate the government is investing in infrastructure, but also technology, we are trying to copy up with other countries. And then we are planning to make partnership as Kasita with the new Ministry of Science in the ministry in State House with Dr. Msenedo to make sure that the government can intensively invest in research and then new innovations, whereby even raw materials which are still sourced from China, we can find alternatives locally. And why are we trying to do this? We need to widen the tax base so that our colleagues don't overtax us, Mr. Chisito. But when the taxes are what? Are also very fair. So that's what Kasita is trying to see that we do. Another thing that we had a challenge that the way the government perceives Kasita. Like, you know, with URA, we do partner with URA mainly in sensitization, compliance, formalizing of business, and others, because that's the role of every Ugandan. But they perceive Kasita like, you are just importers. But my friends, Kasita members have invested heavily in agriculture. I'm also in agriculture. They have invested heavily in education. I have schools. We have set up small-scale department to encourage young entrepreneurs into small-scale production. And we are setting up other research desks to make sure how can we compete with the foreigners, because we cannot allow our economy to be managed by foreigners.
You should be concluding, Mr. Musoke, right?
You know, I have a lot to say, but let me try to conclude. So with this, we need even I want to give an example, let the government organizations or agencies move at the same pace with private sector. Like the first presenter elaborated so well what the innovations URA has put in place. So let other entities move at the same pace.
Okay.
Yes, so that we can access the funds in Micro Support Center, Uganda Development Bank. Now even this package, the president said that it save the business community, which has been affected negatively, COVID, so that we can access it easily. Even the COVID is going, but without us accessing that money. So it limits our planning, it limits our implementations, it affects our work plans. Thank you, I submit.
All right, and trust Mr. Musoke that the PS will be reacting to some of those issues that you've mentioned, of course, at a later hour. I want to bring in Mr. Frank Muramura, because we want to get to the field now of how these goods move in the business community. And we want to truly understand the clearing and forwarding industry and how it actually links into import substitution. And most of the time within the business community, there's a misunderstanding between the goods owners and then, of course, the clearing agent and the constant, which is usually the Uganda Revenue Authority. And of course, as a board member of the Uganda Clearing and Forwarding Industry Association, I'm sure that you will digest that section very well. So please start us off.
Thank you, Mabel. First and foremost, we notice that the discussion is more focused on import substitution, which is really producing locally what is originally imported. And I would want to put it in perspective that you cannot give what you don't have. So clearing and forwarding is actually to facilitate movement of goods. So that means elsewhere where they come from, they are produced. So we are trying to promote production capacity in Uganda so that we can consume what we produce, but we can also export to other countries. But whether it is import or export, the clearing function is still needed. And to put it in perspective, we need to understand why clearing. Every nation has borders, and it has to regulate what comes in or goes out of its borders. And that function, in the case of Uganda and many other countries internationally, is performed by the Customs Department of a Revenue Authority. Elsewhere, they could have a different name, but the function is the Customs Department. And you wanted to know the difference between clearing and forwarding. Usually they are mentioned in one phrase, and there is a tendency to think that they are one activity, but actually they are not. Clearing is the process of documentation to enable goods to be accepted, either to move out of the country or to move into the country through the Customs Department. And because the movement is so much, the customs as a government entity cannot be able to perform that alone. That's why you have a group called clearing and forwarding agents who are licensed by the Customs Department. But what is that clearing? You have to make a declaration to the Customs Department of what you intend to take out or to bring in. And it can be done by the owner of the goods, by the way. but that owner of the goods needed to have been licensed by customs. That's why you hear of such a thing as self-clearing, meaning the owner of the goods is the one also performing the function of clearing. But he ought, or she ought to have been licensed by the Revenue Authority. And when that declaration is made, if it is correct to the satisfaction of customs, and if there are taxes to pay, they have been paid, the customs will authorize release or will clear goods to be exited, to go outside or come inside. So this word clear is actually authorization, which is done by the customs department. But the declarations are usually made by a clearing agent who could be an agent hired by the owner of the goods or the owner of the goods who is licensed. Then when we come to the forwarding, forwarding is an activity of arranging for movement of goods from one point to another. This could be within the country, but most times it is used to refer to goods which are moving across borders. Now, this is performed by people who are familiar with international trade and what is required in terms of documentation in international trade. For example, if I have to move coffee from here to America, I need to know what are the phytosanitary requirements for coffee. It needs to have a phytosanitary certificate, and I need to know where such a certificate comes from Ministry of Agriculture. If you are moving to Europe, you need to know which areas in Europe fall under preferential trade area for Uganda coffee, so that you determine the documentation required. For example, you will need a Euroform to accompany such goods, otherwise you will not benefit from preferential tax treatment in that area. So this clearing and forwarding tend to facilitate each other. And as a forwarder, you do not necessarily have to have your own offices in every country in order to be able to facilitate the movement of the goods. You can work with other agents in the foreign countries whom you collaborate with, and then you will be able to arrange for movement of goods from that point to another. And this movement of goods is usually either using one mode of transport, like if you are flying from, say, New York to Entebbe, you will use an aeroplane. But you can also use other modes of transport like waterways, like road trucks, and rail. Or you can use a combination of them. And such a role is played by a forwarder who is forwarding goods from one point to another. So you need to be familiar with what is required in terms of documentation and in terms of negotiating charges or rates for each mode of transport. So briefly, the clearing is to do with authorization and paperwork, but the forwarding is to do with actual movement. That's the difference between the two. And they can be performed by one actor as long as that actor is licensed to perform the clearing bit. Because the clearing, you must be licensed. So basically, that is the difference between the two. Yeah, thank you.
All right. That is, of course, Mr. Frank Muramura. Thank you so much. And now our viewers are thinking we face a lot of challenges during the clearing and forwarding. And of course, you want to get into that. But even before you face the challenges, what do you need to know as you venture into the clearing and forwarding industry? Because then it would actually help to counter the hiccups before they actually happen. And that is why I'm bringing in the MD Geroma Limited, Mr. Francis Otiama, to take us through some of those issues.
Yeah, thank you, Mabel. Viewers, the campaign we are having at the moment is called the E-Bomba, which is from a very simple tool, but very vital. We are talking about a bomba, which is the pump. In my local language, it is called a bomba. So this is a key gadget or a key tool in the transportation, because for us to move, we have to inflate the tires. At the moment, we have been down, the economy has been grounded, our businesses are grounded, so we need to take off. But before we take off, what do we need? We need to inflate the tires. So we need to inflate our economic tires, we need to inflate our business tires, and for us to do this, we need to look at a few issues that we need for us to move forward. Another catchword we are talking about is the import substitution. I'm a footballer. When a player is tired, what do you always see? That player has to be substituted. So for a long time, we have been playing foreign goods. We have been using goods imported by us from foreign countries at the expense of our local goods. So what we need to do at the moment is to substitute those goods. We need to say, no, we are tired. We cannot continue using goods imported from other countries. We have to promote our own. So that's why I'm happy that URA has organized this engagement where we are now trying to inflate the tires of the economy, inflate the tires of our businesses. But also, when we are here, we are also pumping sense into your businesses. We are giving you the information you require to carry on with your businesses. So the question here is that, what are some of the key things to consider before venturing in the clearing and forwarding industry? My brother Frank has already highlighted what we need, or he has given the definition of the forwarding and what roles they play. So for us, we need to know that in the clearing and forwarding industry, we have a key player, which is the customs agents. So for us to do this, a custom agent, he has already given us, has to be licensed. So how do we go through the processes of having a company licensed? And who does the customs clearance? So he has already given us a few examples of customs agents. He has said that actually you can be a self-clearing company, or you can be licensed to carry the operations or clear the importation of other companies. So these are the key things we need if you want the company to be licensed to clear goods. So number one, you need a national ID for you to enter into the clearing and forwarding industry. So you have to be a Ugandan for you to join the industry. And if you're not a Ugandan, if you're a foreigner, you need a passport. So you should be having a passport with you. And the passport should be having, you should also be having a work permit for you to be licensed. Number two, you must have a place of abode. You must have a place where you call an office. You cannot operate from anywhere. You cannot operate inside your house. You have to have a place where you can meet your customers, a place where URA can come and engage with you. So you need that. Another thing is that you need to register a company. So if you want to do clearing and forwarding, you should have a registered company. And the process of registering a company is long, but what we need to tell you is that you have to have a company registered with the URSB or URBS. Then you also need to have a bank account. So for you to become an agent, you have to have a bank account, because the bank account will help you to to register a TIN. So this takes us to another requirement, is that you should have a tax identification number issued by Uganda Revenue Authority. Another thing you need is that you need a minimum of 2 employees in possession of a certificate in customs clearing and forwarding. So at least you should be having 2 employees having that certificate. You need also to have a valid tenancy agreement. You should be having a place where you're operating your business, and to show that you have a place where you're operating your business, URA will want to have an agreement you've entered into with the landlord. Another thing you need is that you should be having $450. $50 will be used for application, and $400 will be used when you've been approved to do clearing and forwarding. Then another thing is that you must also be a member of one of the associations, clearing and forwarding associations. At the moment, we have 3 associations. We have UFA, we have USIFA, and we have FOCAF. So we have 3 associations at the moment. And then another thing you need to know is that you should be well versed with the government regulations in place. You should at least know the laws applicable in the country. Then the opportunities. After registering your company, there are opportunities that you will be able to enjoy. Number 1, we know that Uganda is a land-linked country. So if you become a customs agent, there are opportunities that you will be able to be self-employed, number 1. Number 2, you will also be an employer. At least you'll be having people to call you boss and report to you. Will be helping you to do your work. Then another advantage is that, another opportunity is that at the moment, URA has carried enormous innovation and reforms. And from these reforms, we, as agents, we are benefiting. For example, a platform like Askuda World. This is a platform which is very expensive, but for us, the agents, we don't pay anything. What we are required to do is only to have the password to that system. So we already have this in place. You'll not be spending money on the Askuda World. Then also we have respect and unity at a personal level within the fraternity, clearing and forwarding fraternity. We are united. Then URA also is ready to license any member as long as you meet the criteria. There's no segregation. Then we move to challenges. What are the challenges we are facing? And I think these are things that we request URA and government to look into, because these are the pains we go through every day. And we request that URA and government should be able to note down what the pains we are going through. Number 1, we have what I may term political realities. As recent as last month, we had trucks that were piled up at the border. So when trucks piled up at the border, we actually spend a lot of money. You find we have a lot of cost that we incur. For example, feeding the drivers, paying the accommodation, it's very expensive. We know recently what happened in Sudan, where our drivers were being killed and our colleagues were being killed in Sudan. So those are the political realities that we experience. Another political reality is that from nowhere, some countries can decide to say that we are not allowing your goods to come into our countries. So as agents, we lose a lot, because you find you've invested in a particular location, and then within that location, you cannot forward goods to another country B. So these are political realities that we need to know, and we have to find ways of solving these realities that are being experienced by us. Another challenge we are having is that as a body, or as players in the clearing and forwarding industry, we don't have a single association. At the moment, as I've already mentioned, we have 3 associations. So what are the difficulties here in this arrangement? You find that it is hard to come up with a code of conduct, a single code of conduct to govern the company. It's not easy. Then also training opportunities become a challenge because different associations will be organizing different trainings. So you find that members in other associations will not be able to gain from the training opportunities. So, and also it is hard for us to affiliate with other international brokers. Then also we have a challenge where we have a number of agents who are not actually customs agents. These are people who come from nowhere, and through their connections, they have friends who will connect them to other businesses, and they go and get documents from other businesses. And when they get documents from other businesses, they may tamper with the documents. So if they tamper with the documents, that kind of thing, now that problem comes to us, the registered agents. So what we need to tell the public is that there are companies that are licensed to do clearing and forwarding, and these are the companies that we encourage you to deal with. How do you know them? You ask for their identity card. Also, you can cross-check. You can query the system of URA, you enter the information. Every year, URA publishes a list of companies and their staffs. Then another challenge we are having is that we are having influx of multinational companies into the country. So, and these companies, in most cases, they target where the other companies are going. For example, if you have a company doing contracts in Benin, that company might get a contract here in Uganda. So if that company gets a contract in Uganda, you'll find another company registered in Uganda to do clearing and forwarding. So we are having a lot of companies coming to compete with us. Another issue is that the open door policy we are having as a nation. We allow people to come and do business in our country without vetting them. People who may come as like I was even told that some people come in containers into the country. So when they come in the containers, those are the people that might actually get access into the system. They register as agents, and yet they are not supposed to qualify. So the open door policy also we need to consider so that we promote our home companies.
Mr. Chama, I'll give you an extra minute.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, then another thing is that the education system we are having does not promote people with serious critical thinking. Education system we are having mainly create people who are meant to be only employees and people who do not think critically, because the questions that are being given by many institutions are mainly recall questions. So the recall questions, it trains you just to respond to what you've been asked. It doesn't train you to think critically. And yet within the industry, you need a critical thinker. Thank you.
All right. That is Mr. Otiama, the MD, Geroma Limited. And I believe some of the issues you've raised in the challenges could be answered by the PS, Minister of Trade and Cooperatives, in digesting some of the existing laws or policies and actually how they can help the industry. In Uganda, Ugandans usually have a saying of chinyambirawa, but at the same time, most of them actually don't even know that these policies or even the laws do exist to protect them, or they can actually use them and explore the benefits. So if you could speak to us, Madam PS, that is Geraldine Sally, on what some of these are and how, of course, traders or investors in Uganda can use them. You also talked about the open door or policy. And of course, if these laws and policies are to prioritize import substitution, how can they use them to their best?
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. First, I would like to thank URA for the different face they have put onto their image, because this is more now like business relationship as opposed to hounding the business community out of business. So thank you very much for that attitude, URA. And good morning, everybody, and ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to first react to my colleague here from
To Mr. Msokenagen.
And to also agree with him on so many of those issues that he raised.
But Madam PS, you know, we have a session for reaction.
Yes, we have a session for reaction, but I might forget.
Okay.
Age is sort of an issue
Please do.
when you get to the fourth floor. So when he talked about ease of doing business and the difficulties that he has, actually government agencies play about 80% in almost like either facilitating that ease or making it difficult for the business community. And that is a self-check on us as government service providers. So, and that includes my brothers and sisters from URA and UNBS, all the government agencies that are involved on that thing we call the value chain. Mm-hmm. So the value chain is not only inputting into their businesses raw materials and utilities and costs, but also the cost of the services provided by government agencies. So 3 weeks ago, I started a transaction with a lady. She was just trying to bring in fish from Busia. But that lady has taught me practically, it's like I moved with her on her journey. I'll not mention her name because the bosses might go for her where I'm not even there to protect her. But she went through clearance back and forth, traveling to Kampala, traveling to Busia, going to the UNBS to get a letter, coming to Ministry of Trade to get a letter, going to customs clearance. She has made about, her carbon footprint in the last 2 weeks, I think, is about 500 miles, trying to just get her fish cleared. And in the meantime, that fish is rotting. Yeah. So value chain can actually be a devalue chain out of the services provided by government. So that was a reality check on our side. And I'm not so sure whether we are looking at it that way. But my spirit is that we should partner at all levels and see how we could make it easy. Uganda at the moment is about 116 on the index of ease of doing business. And other African countries who are our neighbors are actually in the top 40. So that's the first thing. The next thing is you talked about how difficult it is to get a land from the industrial parks. Mm-hmm. And then he even closed it with, oh. So yes, it is true, it is very difficult to get land, but we want to do a policy that is all-encompassing. In fact, we are dreaming of taking it to the next level of having a turnkey industrial park where, to make it easy, like, you know, you don't go to negotiate the land, then you don't start the construction. When you get a loan, a business loan, they are counting, yet you have not yet started production. Sure. So the cost of doing business is already kicking in before you even start production, never mind finding market for your products. But when you have a turnkey, ready-to-use industrial park, you get in, the roads are built, the electricity is fitted, the infrastructure is already there.
Water.
All the air, water and everything. So all they give you is the key, bring your machinery, start production. So it reduces the amount of lead time to production. That means that we start production immediately. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the things we wanted to do with development partners. And I'm hoping that every single person who is listening to support this agenda for our local communities to be able to compete with these so-called investors coming from abroad. Now I turn to my brother here. Thank you so much for that delivery and the insight into the kind of business you're doing. Clearly it is fresh to me, but I can see that we have got opportunity to grow together into your business because you're playing a very key role in terms of movement of goods within the whole continent now, because those tariffs, the treaties that have been signed across Africa are evolving, and they've now spread into the African Continental CFTA, which is really what we are looking at, the whole market of Africa, ease of doing business within Africa, and the flow of goods and services, which will also facilitate the import substitution. So I think these are some of the conversations we can take away and then see how we can actually partner. But the most important thing is that we have the attitude to make it better. So you also asked about the treaties and everything that,
policies.
You know, it's a very complicated subject matter, even for me, because I haven't really been in trade business. But when I was introduced to it, I was like, these people are actually going through a lot. However, it's not really a lot if there are enabling factors on those transactions where the business community actually lives and works and is trading on a daily basis. For me, there is one critical aspect that would bring in the synergies at all levels. And that critical aspect for me is always digitization and technology. And I'm so glad that institutions like URA, institutions like Uganda Registration Services Bureau, they are all digitizing. National Water, NSSF. The moment we make it very easy for the movement of money, for the movement of transactions, whatever transaction it is, we are actually making it easier for the business community and therefore the collection of taxes and all the other agenda that government would execute either way of the business. So if I just talk about the few areas, now starting with East Africa. No, let me start with Uganda, import substitution. Why it is important for us to really substitute. One, you're reducing the cost of transporting all those goods and services, whatever you're bringing into the country. So it's produced locally. And yes, there was an issue of, is it of quality? Because you can see, I wonder if any of us sitting here is actually wearing something from Nightil. And the last time I checked, I understand it was the president who's wearing a Nightil shirt every day. The yellow one and the white one is usually Nightil. But if I ask you, my dear Mabel, that coat, I'm very sure it's coming probably from Germany or somewhere.
He talked about perception.
Yes. Well, now I'm telling you, because you will want to go into Winter Classic, you will want to go into Debenhams, you will want to go to John Lewis to do your shopping. Yeah. You don't want to go to a local milliner to actually buy your textiles. But really, I think we should think boo-boo, because that is the underpinning critical aspect that is driving the force of buy Uganda, build Uganda. The last time I first bought apples or saw them on our market, I thought they were coming from England. But now we have apples being produced in Uganda. So they reduce the cost. Yes. So the apple juice, everything to do with the local production, agribusiness. So when we talk about the criticality of technology in terms of making it easy, even in agribusiness, and for the people who really want to produce locally and help the agribusiness agenda for the country in terms of import substitution, also think about agri-tech. Agri-tech, the new way of servicing the agriculture business, like how you have fintech for the financial services, making it easier to transact for the banks and the banking sector and the financial services, the same with agriculture. People who want to now invest in agriculture should also be looking at the technology that is going to enable you to make it cheaper, faster, ease of access to actually go. And then that is where also e-commerce comes in. So it would then be easier for us to see exactly where we are going with all this. I don't really want to go into the whole list of treaties, but in short, what this would really do for us is that us as a government sub-player, we would like to do a very big investment prospectus for Uganda. And we say we have these sectors and industries where we have so much demand. For example, in the steel business, steel, we have iron ore in the whole of Western Uganda. It's really there, and people are not really exploiting it. But we are naturally endowed with resources. But then we import steel from other countries, and that volume is about $400 million per year. And yet it can actually be facilitated and then produced in Uganda because we have the raw materials that make steel, and then it feeds into all our industries. So there are some critical areas which we can actually import substitute. And then not to mention the pharmaceutical industry. We can actually do a lot. Let me tell you, Ugandans, we do not have vaccines for both animals and people, and yet we have the intellectual property and capabilities to produce our own vaccines. So you can imagine, if you have the cattle corridor of Ankole and you're producing all the vaccines for for their cows, anthrax, what, you name it, per cow, and you're going to be immunizing it on an annual basis. If you translate all those numbers into money, we are talking about trillions of dollars, but we have not yet tapped into that market. So when we talk about import substitution on a large scale, right now we are actually importing every single vaccine for animals and for people. And we are 44 million Ugandans. Now this is just Uganda alone. I've not yet even gone into the East African community. Then let me also talk about the oil import substitution. Now you see those people who are in Bunyoro, you have got Tilenga, you have got Kingfisher, all those are the camps that are there ready to actually help in the production of oil. But guess what? They eat food every single day. And when they produce their list of demands for what they need every single day, they would need about, just an example, 3,000 kilograms of cabbage on a monthly basis. And by the way, that is alongside the other population of Uganda who are also eating. So we cannot even satisfy our own demand locally. We have to import most of it. So that means that we have got room for agribusiness. And that is where people actually should capitalize and say, you know what, let us capitalize on what God has given us already. We have fertile soil, we have the manpower, all these tertiary institutions are producing unemployed students and graduates on a daily. Let us utilize our local resources. So the import substitution is not only bringing in Chinese experts, but also we are importing our labor. We are substituting our labor for a local one, the local content. So if I just then quickly take you through those enabling laws and treaties that would help us. So we have the first one, which is now the recent one, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area. That one is covering the 54 countries, which means that we can actually move our goods and services within Africa at no cost, at tax-free and quota-free. That's what it means. We also have AGOA. AGOA was specifically introduced in 2000 for African countries to ship goods and services of quality to America. And so far, the best performing country I've got to discover is Kenya, next door. I will not mention the position of Uganda, but we can do better. What has made it easy for Kenya to be the top on the AGOA agenda is they have done their ease of doing business. They've made sure, one, they train their people. Whoever is going to actually produce goods for the American market, they do their training. They give them the technology. They give them the, they have the preferential treatment within their own country. They have the infrastructure, they give them the infrastructure, and then they give them grants specifically to produce for the American market. And then they can obviously do the monitoring. And then we have the generalized systems of preferential quota for the least developing countries. And all this is to Canada, Japan, and China. Now, I don't want to refer to us, as I've said already, I don't want to refer to us in Africa as the least developed countries, because I just want to say that we are least empowered countries. Least empowered in terms of resources. The skills, we need to build our capacity. The financials, we need to let our development partners allow for the negotiations on the tables. I don't know if any of you saw on the latest news this week when Afrexim Bank actually signed a contract with Uganda, which is almost putting our airport in abeyance, where they lend you money at a very high rate. If you default, the arbitration is in their country. If you If you fail to pay, they're the ones who decide in their court, because the arbitration would happen in their country. Then they decide the penalty for you. So where you've borrowed is the arbitrator, and he also decides in his court how you're going to pay, and he can decide to take the whole airport. Now, those unfair negotiations, you could say that we were reluctant, we never consulted the legal forces. No, actually what happened is that we have the balance of justice is tilted towards the person who's actually dangling the carrot over your head, because you have no way out. So the unfair terms of negotiation should also come into play, where we sit at a table with a bit of equity and morality. Then we have got the World Trade Organization.
Madam PS.
And we also have...
About a minute.
We almost have that. Okay. Then we have the African Union. And we have the common market for East Africa and South Africa. This is COMESA. All these are just allowing us to do tariff-free, quota-free. But I wanted to just leave off with the areas where Ugandans can actually invest and benefit.
Sure.
Like I said, the pharmaceuticals, it's a must. These are basics of life. They must be demanded. Agriculture, to feed. People feed every day. Still, basics of life. People eat every single day. You cannot eat today and say, I won't eat tomorrow. Agriculture is a must. And one of the biggest imports we have, believe it or not, is cereals. Cereals into bread, cereals into all those confectionaries. And that is, for the last figure that I checked, is about $264 million a year. And then animal vegetables and fat, we like frying. The local production cannot satisfy our local demand. Every single Kafunda is frying a Rolex, a chapati. The demand on cooking oil, fat, animal fats is amazing. It's about $289 million per annum, despite the local production. So I think with that, for now, I will leave it at that due to time. I could talk the whole day, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
All right. And of course, the discussion continues. Most of the time, Ugandans say, or at one particular point before we even started, you were telling me a story of graduated tax, where people were just running all the time from being rounded up by URA, but now we're totally seeing a different story altogether. And one of the objectives of the Bomba Your Business Summit is to get feedback from the business community, and of course have experts like you to feed the knowledge. It's very bad for somebody to take from you when they're actually not giving back. But we see a different story now with the Uganda Revenue Authority. We're going to take a very short break. You're watching us on Baba TV, on BBS, Telefina, and of course across all the Uganda Revenue Authority social media platforms, not forgetting URA TV. That is strictly Uganda Revenue Authority television, which you can subscribe on YouTube and get all the information that you might actually need. We return for another session. Customs is here, Clearing and Forwarding Industry is here, a PS from the Ministry of Trade is here, and of course URA is here. We'll be returning shortly. My name is Mebo Twegumiezake, and of course let's also appreciate Olivia, who is on a sign language interpretation.
The Taxpayers Appreciation Season is here! We recognize, celebrate, and award Uganda's top taxpayers. Be part of the online Bomba Your Business Summits and stand a chance to win smartphones, gift sets, hampers, and lots more. Visit our social media pages to find out more.
We appreciate you for paying your taxes. We're proud to be Ugandan.
We celebrate you.
Oh, we celebrate
Taxpayers
you.
of Uganda. We appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
Uganda together.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Our humble beginnings take place in September 1991 with an amalgamation of 3 different departments in the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Back then, the economy was just getting back onto its feet. tax collection stood at 6.83% of the GDP, amounting to 180 billion Uganda shillings in the financial year 1991-1992. The URA senior management team comprised of over 60% expatriate staff, and revenue collection depended majorly on cash-based systems. Over the years, we have developed more effective and automated means of revenue administration, with 95% of URA's processes automated to mitigate corruption and position URA as a business enabler. Revenue collection has grown to 13% of GDP, amounting to 19.26 trillion Uganda shillings collected in the just concluded financial year 2020-2021. At 30 years old today, URA boasts of being an effective semi-autonomous in the entire country and driving Uganda towards economic independence. We have a vision of mobilizing enough revenue to fund the national budget by 100%. We are 30 years stronger.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
That's my little angel Rose. Together with millions of other children, my daughter Rose is assured of learning something new every day. Moses, my husband, just like many other commercial farmers, has his business supported so he can provide for us. When my other little one was on the way, even with my pregnancy complications, it was a quick, smooth ride to Mulago Specialized Women and Neonatal Hospital. Also, my new baby was able to make it through his first days with the help of specialized equipment, thanks to the reliable electricity, which has also been extended throughout the country. All this and more has been made possible because of you.
Join us and together let's do more for our country. Get your free tin at www.ura.go.ug.
Thank you for paying your taxes.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Kapo, you seem to be in a hurry. Where are you going to?
I'm gonna pay URA a visit.
Why would anyone visit URA? Of all places?
To know more about the Kakasa business solutions, namely digital tracking solution, the voluntary disclosure program and electronic fiscal receipting, and invoicing solution, which have turned my business around. You know I need to be on top of my game to protect my empire. If you know, you know.
I too need to know what Kapo knows.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Wait, Abu, tunamaliliza. And what are you doing throwing papers all over the place?
I'm looking for an invoice for a sound system and cables that I received yesterday, but I can't find it.
You know there is a way of keeping all this in one place and available to you as and when you need it.
I really wish there was one, because the way these invoices grow legs and disappear.
I believe this is what you're looking for.
Now how did it get there?
Tabo! Do you know that with EFRIS, you can stay on track of all your business transactions and improve on your record keeping?
How so?
Katituliku computer with EFRIS. I just search using the fiscal document number and I retrieve the records I'm looking for. Bookkeeping becomes simple after that.
Kapo, awesome, yeah.
I began using URA's Kakasa solutions and now I'm in charge of my business, and you can as well.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
We are glad you're still following the third edition of the URA E-Bomba Business Summit. That is until the 12th of November, with different renowned journalists moderating these sessions as experts come in from the business community to talk about the different issues on taxation, trade, and of course businesses. This is the second session. If you've been following from the beginning on social media, the hashtag is URA Business 21. You watching us on URA TV, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow every moment of this session and the following sessions every Friday. BBS Telefina, we are live, including Baba TV. Thank you so much for watching as we continue with our great panel. This particular session is specific to trade and investment opportunities in Uganda that have been laid out very well, of course, through our great panel. And we're continuing with the same conversation. And I want to come back to you, Mr. Asadu, on specifically the opportunities in government import substitution strategy. Of course, we've listened into the Kasita chairperson talking about the benefits, of course, of import substitution and what Kasita specifically is going through with the challenges which we will be addressing in the reactions. But what about those that they actually haven't been able to exploit that you can talk to us about? And of course, in addition to the advancements that is in our trade facilitation initiatives over the years, URA is now celebrating 30 years, so there must be a lot there.
Thank you very much, Mabel, and the viewers who have kept tuned in for this program and getting our business revamped. Indeed, government has deliberately put policies in place to make sure that we produce items we have been all along importing. But most importantly also, the excess that cannot be consumed here, then taken to other markets, as the Geraldine has ably said, within the region and outside the region. And given our population, it means it's not enough to consume all that we produce. One of the important things to know is that the information for facilitating import substitution is open to both local and international. And when you look at the incentives that government has put in place to facilitate this, where a foreigner is coming in to invest, the requirement of the capital you need for you to benefit from the exemption while starting a business, a manufacturing venture, an agro-processing venture to produce, for the local person, it is lower than that of the foreign person coming in. Meaning that we want to have a big pool of the local people benefiting from these incentives. Mm-hmm. Secondly, because of the congestion in the greater Kampala area, if you put your factory outside Kampala more than 50 kilometers, then the incentives even become higher for you. The amount of money you require to get the investment license and benefit from the exemptions on the raw materials and other incentives is even higher. For instance, if in Kampala, Greater Kampala, you need, let's say, $1 million or 3.5 billion at that, then the other side, you have a 50% less than that, which means that government is deliberate to make sure that we spread the investment. Also, the industrial parks have been facilitated to be established in the different regions. For instance, now we have Mbale Industrial Park, we have Buyikwe Industrial Park, we are having a Gulu Trade Hub, where we are going to have so many services. We have Kapeka and other areas that are coming up. All these are geared to tap into the different resources we are producing here. And the emphasis is on the agro-processing. Reason being simple, that we are basically farmers. We have a niche on production, organic products, which are now very difficult to come by on the international market. We are using our natural soils with the minimum fertilizers to produce. And what we need is to improve the quality of these items, and we are able to reach the market. But also government on the packaging material for these raw produced goods. If you are producing, the packaging material has been exempted from import duties, meaning this will reduce on the cost of doing your business while carrying out the import substitution. There is a grace period on taxation. In terms of income tax, we have the period range up to 10 years if you are investing, meaning that you will not be paying income tax. But also, if you are bringing in expertise to help you establish these industries here, this expertise costs a lot of money. And therefore, government has eased on bringing this expertise here, meaning that if they come and they have come to establish a factory here, support you in establishing a factory, when they are earning, they are not going to be taxed, the expertise, so that we can lower the cost of transferring this technology, which our brother Msoke was talking about. But also the raw materials I've already mentioned, they don't pay import duty. And you have a facility to manufacture under bond, where customs will monitor your production, and then you are able to be able to export. But we have also, as URA, taken on this initiative of import substitution as key, where it is going to help us move to the next level in our development. In these industrial parks, we have officers who are facilitating the people who are establishing the industries. We are also who have put information on our website on all the government initiatives, and we have also published brochures to inform the public of the incentives in each tax policy, in each tax year which government comes up. And if you are after the budget has been read, URA comes up with you would call a compendium of government initiatives and how they have affected the different markets. But also, government has gone ahead to protect the local producer, meaning that if we have something that is produced in Uganda, government has raised the tax on that item that comes into the country, so that we can have a fair competition for our products. For instance, if you are producing a shirt which Nitel is also producing, you will pay at a higher tax rate of 35%, so that Nitel can be able to have market for the shirts. And other products also are also in that line, where government has also used the tax rates to help the local person producing to have an advantage on producing here and have a fair competition so that we can have market. But you are also aware that all exports, except a few, like raw processed fish, hides and skins, and minerals, the rest of the products, if you are producing for export, there is no export tax. You don't need to pay tax if you are producing for export. If you are processing juice and you are taking it to another country, if you are producing your milk and it is going to Kenya, it is going to Egypt, to wherever, we don't charge any tax on it. All those are geared to help us improve our production in the industry sector. And every Ugandan is eligible, as we already highlighted. And what we need to do now, what we are doing as URA, is organizing such fora so that people can be able to get information. But also through our different digital networks. URA is one of the government agencies that has embraced the technology, information technology, to reach out to as many people as possible. And the young generation is brought on board, because we have now programs with the schools, so that because the students, the young people, are interacting with the old people who have the money to invest, but they don't have the time to go to these platforms, leave alone if they are aware that they are there. So they are investing in their children into this technology, and the children are now demystifying technology to their parents who are investing. So all information is channeled through the digital platforms, but also the print media and the electro media, which helps us to sensitize people so that they can know that these programs, but also the URA has an open door for information. If you need any information on anything, we are able to provide. One of the things I deal with on a daily basis is clients writing to find out, if I want to start a factory, what do I need to know? And we give this information readily. If you have not been able to find it on the website, and not only for URA, but depending on the area where you want to invest. If you go to the Ministry of Trade website and there's something you need there, what licenses do I need for me to import or export? They will be clearly found on these websites, but also we help our clients to digest this information. And when you start the nitty-gritty of moving goods, which our colleagues here in the freight forwarding industry are doing, then we come in the operations to make sure that your consignments are delivered in real time or with a minimum cost of doing business. And generally, when you look at our statistics, Uganda now only charges import duty on about only 20% of the items that come into the country, meaning most of the goods that we are receiving are raw materials to produce other goods. Therefore, the regime for import duty is zero. Or we are relating with other countries. You are importing it either from our neighboring countries, the regional, where there is a tax preference. If you are importing from the East African community country, it will be zero. Even if ordinarily, if you import from outside the community, it will be 10% or 25%. So all those are geared to make sure that we build our economy and rid Uganda of the economic dependence, and we shall be able to prosper as a country and be able to work and deliver services at our own terms. Thank you, Bebo.
Well, thank you to Mr. Assad. The constant from Mr. Assad that I've picked, which also Madame P.S. talked about, was the digitization. And she applauded organizations and companies that have been actually able to carry this out. I've experienced it myself on the URA TV, that is on YouTube channel, which you should subscribe to. If you need any information, actually, they do interviews with some of their officials and sit down and ask them a couple of questions in case you're facing any challenges. At times, you don't even need to walk to the URA tower, so you get the information off YouTube or their social media platforms and get empowered, and this should actually continue. So what this session allows Mr. Msoke Nagenda to do is to actually counter. And you said you didn't have a lot of time to actually speak to, some of the things that you wanted government to successfully do if we're looking forward to an industrialization agenda and the future of business in this country. So you can counter some of the things he said or what the PS said in this session, of course, on how or what government can strictly do to find those long-lasting solutions in implementation of import substitution. Kasita, Chairperson, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mabel. I want to thank my colleagues and you for the good engagement. I think it's very vital for the nation. Again, I want to thank URA for such a great innovation. I think what is lacking now, like URA online TV, we shall link into with Kasita TV because also we have an online TV. We are trying to be more digital. Mainly, I think what maybe my colleague can enlighten more is about protecting local industries. What we have discovered is that sometimes policies are implemented without fully analyzing most of the investors. Luckily enough, when we were working together with the Ministry of Trade, we discovered that most of the industries the government is protecting, they are cheating Ugandans. They pretend like they are bringing raw materials when they are bringing already made products. Secondly, they reach an extent of requesting government to clear water bills and electricity. So it's very unfortunate where you find that we taxpayers, we the traders who pay taxes, at times you find that we are over being taxed. I want to give a scenario. I want to mention the companies, mainly in garments. We discovered that even their quality. When I was presenting with National Bureau of Standards, we analyzed that standardization and quality is very vital in satisfying our needs as customers and consumers. But you find that even some T-shirts which are made here, they are being protected, but their quality needs improvement. And luckily enough, when we brought the samples, we had to urge them out. So before protection, why can't we improve the quality of locally produced goods? Secondly, we carried out a survey in Namamve where URA had increased some tax on carpets. When we toured that factory, the gentleman told us, he welcomed us so well, and then told us, by the way, some member of Kasita. He said, okay, that's good. So where is the plant which manufactures carpets? He told us, you know, I've just set up this building, but within 3 months I will start producing. Up to now, he hasn't produced a single carpet. But what he had convinced the traders, that you tell me, you give me the orders. For the meantime, I have a colleague at URA, so he'll enable me to import, given the fact that I'm going to produce, so that I supply you. So there is no need of ordering these carpets to China. So later we asked him, who are some of the partners in your company? He told me, I have a colleague who works in URA, he's one of the partners. So later we told him, can we have a meeting with you and your partner? Luckily, unfortunately, after maybe engaging us, he told the partner, and the partner disappeared up to now. So why am I bringing this? That some of the foreign investors are protected when they don't have capacity, when they have colleagues in certain entities to protect them, that you shall pretend like you are bringing, so this is a whistleblower, I'm a whistleblower. We shall investigate that person who is protecting that gentleman here at URA. So we need to streamline. Before enforcing those tax policies, let us work together, let us analyze and investigate these investors. Luckily enough, URA currently took us back to the other old rate, tax rate. So our members are comfortable. So thank you, URA. But before implementing those protective measures, we need to critically analyze and assess these investors. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Thaddeus Musoke Nagenda. Madam Secretary, because Madam PS you'll be reacting shortly, but I want to first bring in Mr. Otiama on the same question on what you think government can actually do for the customs industry as long-lasting solutions.
Thank you, Mabel. Currently, what we are going through is not that bad. However, during the URA decision-making, in most cases, we are not consulted. So what I'm suggesting is that we need to have a broad consultative decision-making process whereby all the stakeholders are consulted. Yes, because like what Brother Musoke has said, there was a time when URA came up with a very unfair valuation method which affected the country because the country was at a standstill. We were not collecting taxes. Then later on, good enough, as he's saying, it was revoked. So what I'm suggesting is that we need a process whereby almost all the parties are involved. For example, where you bring the traders, you bring the customs agent on board. Currently, we are having the valuation methods that are not favorable, not fair to the trading community. This is a system whereby URA comes with a list of items and then tag the values. So those are the values which you are supposed to apply. Much as the importer has, say, all the documents, URA officers will tell you that your transaction has failed the valuation test. It has failed the valuation test. It has failed the test. And from what we know that the law does not talk about the test. The law talks about the indicative values. And what URA is having at the moment is akin to minimum values, which was actually abolished by the World Trade Organization. So what we are saying is that before values are established by URA, we need to have all the stakeholders. We need to call CACITA, we need to call the agents and other parties so that we discuss before coming up with such aggressive decision that always affects the country. So that's what I'm suggesting, that we need to be consulted. Then another thing we need, I'm proposing that we have a national committee on trade facilitation, whereby we bring almost all the parties to come and discuss. And this one is established by the Trade Organization, Trade Facilitation Agreement. It recommends that we have such kind of arrangements where traders come and other stakeholders come. We sit down at a round table and discuss. Another thing which might be a bit sensitive is the bubu. I would suggest that we rebrand bubu, because when you're talking about bubu, we are saying buy Uganda, build Uganda. And yet we are operating in a trading bloc. So if in our bloc we are saying buy Uganda, build Uganda, what about other countries, other member states? What will they say? And from what I'm seeing, this is actually triggering unfair competition, where some countries are saying, okay, also they're coming up with their own version of bubu. And by doing that, they block our goods from entering into their country. So I'm suggesting that we rebrand bubu so that we emphasize on quality, whereby you find that regionally or internationally, we are known for quality. This has actually been experienced, especially the Lato milk. Because of its quality, you find Lato had penetrated the Kenyan market, and most Kenyans were actually buying Lato. So based on quality, we can actually market our products. But if you say, bubu, buy Uganda, build Uganda, yet we are a family, what will other people say? So I'm suggesting that we rebrand the bubu policy. Thank you.
Wow, interesting. And when I come to you, Madam PS, you will start from there, since you have at least a minute or two to talk about the bubu policy. But to you, Mr. Frank Muramura, if you could talk to us a little bit on whether the clearing and forwarding associations have actually effectively played their role in supporting the trade initiatives, before we go into the reactions.
Yeah, thank you, Mabel. Before I talk about the associations, I need to talk about who are these people who associate in those associations. These are clearing agents. And the clearing agents have relationships both with Uganda Revenue Authority and with owners of goods. Now, owners of goods could be exporters or importers. And it is because they are licensed, that's why they also got to join the associations. But first of all, what is this relationship that we have with URA? URA is our regulator, those of us in clearing and forwarding, because they license us, as my colleague said, and they supervise our operations. And also, the act that gives them power which is the East African Customs Management Act, also enjoins us to work with them and gives us responsibilities under that act. Actually, talking about that act, I also wanted to clarify that many times people say that URA has imposed or levied tax on them, which is not true, because URA is just an implementer of what was decided elsewhere. The people of Uganda levy their own taxes through their members of parliament. You could say it is the government, the central government, the executive, which proposes that. Yes, but when they make proposals, they take them to parliament, where we have sent our representatives, and when they consent is when those laws become effective. And the URA and the clearing agents come in only to implement them. So if the tax rates are unfair, then we need to ask our representatives we send to parliament. Do not crucify the clearing agents and URA. Maybe where you can crucify URA is the method of operation they use. If it is harsh or unreasonable, as my colleague had said, setting unreasonable values, there, yes, we can talk about URA. But as for rates, it is us who set them for ourselves. So we have that agency relationship. We act and collect taxes on behalf of URA. But we also have a different relationship with URA. The same act that gives us that responsibility also makes us liable for what our customers, the owners of goods, have failed to do. If they have taxes they have evaded, then we, the agents, are held responsible. That's why you'll find that the agents are required to have a customs guarantee bond guarantee, to safeguard against those things. But on the other side of the owner of goods, we have a relationship which is consultancy or advisory in nature. We are supposed to advise the owner of goods what is required, both locally and internationally, because if goods are moving across borders, they will be subject to laws of Uganda, but they will also be subject to laws of other countries. So in that way, a clearing agent should be knowledgeable in the laws that govern the movement of goods in Uganda, what is restricted, what is prohibited, and what is freely allowed. And therefore should be conversant with the harmonized tax rates, or they should be conversant with how to get tariff specification codes and where they get them from. They should be conversant with customs procedure codes and where they get them from. They should also be conversant with other parties that work along with URA to safeguard Ugandan interests. Such parties include NDA or National Drug Authority, Uganda Bureau of Standards, and the Ministry of Agriculture. If an agent is not conversant with what is required by those bodies, then they will not help the owner of goods. But now, that is at the individual company level. But whatever we execute is discussed in other policy-making organs. And there, not all companies will go to participate, because we are over 400 companies. That's why we have associations, which associations then help us participate at policy-making levels. We participate in forums like COMESA negotiations. We participate when we are dealing with the East African Business Council. And we also find that at an international level, now when you leave Uganda level, there are also worldwide associations. Some of our companies are members of those worldwide associations. And they enable us give services in foreign countries where we don't have our own representations. And we, by reciprocation, we also give them services in Uganda. Therefore, that foreign company is able to deliver goods, say, to Mbarara, using us. So associations make policy discussion and implementation easier, and they also make the forwarding of goods achievable across very wide borders. Thank you very much.
And it's no wonder that Mr. Otiama said they don't have a single association of their own. So probably as we get into reactions, PS, as you address the Bubu policy, what do you also think about his suggestion of rebranding the Bubu policy because of how it actually hinders, local products in other countries?
Thank you very much. Now, I wanted to start with the issue of setting taxes, and then I'll address the Bubu policy.
Okay.
The taxes in Uganda are set by the government and implemented at URA, you are right. However, there's a duty on every party that is involved in the tax process. Now, it doesn't matter whether the taxes are set in finance, but I believe they should be set with the Ministry of Trade, Industries and Cooperatives. That should be the core, one of the core functions of that ministry. But I think for some reason they are now sitting in finance. Why? I think because the technocrats who do the simulations on what percentage increase of tax when we actually move this bit is going to increase this tax revenue collection. So they can actually see both of those things together, but really the home of tax policy setting should be in the Ministry of Trade. But we are that same government, so I rest that case. Now, in terms of implementation, URA then looks at the regulations and then they implement. Where I think they should be concerned, or they should concern themselves, is the interpretation of that law and how it translates into implementation. For example, when I was clearing my car, when I was a returning resident into Uganda, the officer who cleared my car said, oh no, you will have to pay tax on this car because you have not owned it. I think the period was, whether 3 years or 4 years? 12 months. And then I said to him, no, because I had moved to America for a few months, so he counted that I was not using the car in United Kingdom because it had parked. You see what I mean? Ownership of the car doesn't, whether it is parked or not, it's still your car. So when I'm in America, it's still my car, so I've owned it for the 12 months, but he chose to misinterpret it. And then I had to write letters to every single commissioner. And I remember Kajina at that time received my letter because I was rioting. The car had been held in the bond of URA for 8 months. You can check those records. And I was almost giving up on the car. So now imagine I'm just bringing a car, which is my car. I'm not a trader. Then I felt sorry for the actual traders when they bring these cars. So the misinterpretation of the law sometimes and how you actually implement is what causes the high costs of doing business. Never mind what my colleague here, Mr. Musoke, mentioned, that actually the officers within these government departments collude with other members of public or even by themselves to disadvantage the trading community because they get their fingers in there to the disadvantage and the detriment of the day-to-day business of others. So that's where we need to check those challenges. And every single one of the organizations, including mine, has got those challenges.
Mr. Otiama also mentioned whether they are masqueraders or whoever they are. Yeah. But sometimes how does that
how
get
do we then do the policing?
Exactly.
And the ensuring and the, making sure that everything is working. It's a tall order, but we have to start. In terms of rebranding Bubu, I can tell you it's a good idea. But the spirit of which you submit, I recognize it. Why? Because when we say we are one community, like East African community, we should really be the same. But the reality on the ground is that you will protect yours first before you look at someone else's. That is the law of nature. Whether nature is at an individual level, at a country level, or a continental level. I'm going to protect my African brother first before I protect the white man sitting in his air-conditioned office somewhere in Geneva making regulations for me. It's nature. So, and for us, naturally, as we have been branded the least developed countries, we are going to start with ourselves. Now, you have been following the fights on milk between Uganda and Kenya. You have been following the fights on maize products, on fish. So every single one, much as we are in the East African community and we shake hands on the treaties and the declarations that we sign on, but we still have the natural instinct of first protecting ours because we know the vulnerabilities of the agro-processing industry and agribusiness industry in Uganda, and we know our local African problems. So that is why we start by promoting ourselves. That is just the law of nature. But in terms of rebranding that, I think it's not, if you're on a continuum of pains, that one is not the biggest of our pains. I would put it probably at, if I have pains, like 20 pains, I'll put it at number 19. My biggest pain is what our traders go through. If I have a priority, a list of priorities, it is what our traders go through, like in terms of justice on taxation, the fiscal policy on taxation, ease of doing business, cost of doing business, those things that really, and then promotion of their goods and services, and even the import promotion and substitution. So for me, I would have like the 5 key things which really worry me and keep me awake. I would look at those first before I go into the rebranding.
So,
but
Madam Pierce, if you're still reacting to that, you're saying you're protecting your own, then answer to what Mr. Musoke said. At times, they feel foreign investors are protected by government or protected by URA. Same comment that is coming in from our social media.
Another thing, Madam Mebo.
Where, let me first read this, please, because we're running out of time and we need to react to these comments. Foreign companies are allowed to freely operate and they end up out-competing the locals as they come with a lot of money and benefits to go back to their own countries. So what do the panelists think about it? Same issue came from him, and you could react, and then, of course, Mr. Assad also reacts to that.
Just a moment. Currently, we have some colleagues from Taiwan. They're here at Serena. What other governments are doing there? Investing heavily in their local investors. Imagine something related to that message. The interest rate, I request my boss also, PS, to talk about the interest rate. You find in Kenya we are competing with Kenyans who can access money at 12%. Here is above 20.
So, Mr. Musoke, the constant is foreign investors. Madam PS, if you can react.
Thank you very much. It's true. For example, while we are talking about free trade areas, and we say China also has a declaration, a general declaration, but I will tell you that every single company that comes from China in Uganda is partly owned by the government of People's Republic of China. So they are actually protecting and sending their own government and name and companies to African countries. So they are also protecting themselves, and they're the ones sitting at the table with us to negotiate all these deals. And then they even have the cheap money. They have access to the cheap funding. They come in with 1%, 2% on a dollar rate, and then the Ugandan is accessing funding. Already cost of business is already high. When you borrow at 12% on a dollar rate, double digit, that is already high. It's not sustainable. There is no business that can operate sustainably on a double digit. And never mind that it's agribusiness and we don't even have insurance. So if you're anticipating rain and you borrowed money to grow your maize and process it into the silos, by the time the rain doesn't come because it's God's decision, you do not have the agricultural insurance to bail you out, and neither will, you could see even with the pandemic. Any natural disasters, you're on your own. So we do have, things like Uganda Re and all the other insurance companies, but people don't really know about these products, never mind the trust in them. So I agree with you. And that is where, for me, my argument comes into either designing specific products for the agribusiness fraternity and the industry fraternity, or because they call it like trade finance and agricultural finance, but really it is the UBA and the business world are just making money. They are profit centers. Let's say it as it is, much as they repackage it and make themselves look like they are CSR and what, but the bottom line is always their bottom line. They are competing for profits, and some of them are foreign banks, some of them are local banks. But if we get a bank or financial institution which is catering for the local person and specifically designed, and that is my call to HE, to allow us and support us form an agriculture bank or a cooperatives bank, which is specifically designing products for them. And then our brothers and sisters in the trade fraternity can tap into this business, especially if they are using the back-end value chain of our production in agriculture.
All right, I'll give you a minute to react.
Thank you very much. We in Uganda Revenue Authority, just like any other government agency, we implement laws and regulations as passed by the Parliament and international agreements as signed by our country. And in Uganda Revenue Authority, we have a policy of zero tolerance to corruption, meaning that if you have, like Mr. Musoke highlighted, that he's a whistleblower, we have avenues of where you can channel this information. If you don't trust the area of channeling it through URA, there are several government agencies that have been put in place. But also on the other side, it is us, it has to begin with us and say, I'm not going to give a bribe here, I'm not going to be compromised here. So if each one of us takes a stand, then we are able to make a change. But also on the other side of business, where they say foreigners are favored and all that, but one commodity which we have to cherish as Ugandans, as East Africans, as Africans, is trust. Because any business survives on trust. Someone sends you goods right from China, wherever, you have not paid a single penny, it is about trust. That when you deliver, he delivers, she delivers, you'll be able to pay back. So once we develop this trust amongst ourselves, then we shall be able to move our country to another level, because we shall be able to access that low interest finance because the trust is there, people are paying back and taking responsibility as they are supposed to be. I submit.
All right, and of course that question on foreign investors came in from Hope Atwine, that is on the URA Twitter Spaces or across our social media platforms. But there's another one from Gonsha Rejema Olive, who says import substitution is good, but why is it being rushed against local leaders? Another comment that also came in from Mr. Musoke. So in a minute. He actually likened it to a bride, a woman, said it should be processed by... Okay, in a minute.
Yes, thank you very much. Import substitution is really us as a country trying to increase our income status and increase, therefore, the gross domestic product of our country. Because, and you know, like, I don't want to go so technical, but the difference between imports and exports then creates deficits on either surplus or demand. Either you have surplus or you have deficit on the import position. Now, if you're importing more than you export, you're going to tilt the balance of your economy into negative. So if you now want to change that equation to export more than you import, you're increasing your gross domestic product, which means that your economy is moving in the right direction and growing at in the right pace and the right direction. Mm-hmm. So that is why we really want to do import substitution. Then not only is it just increasing the GDP, it is increasing the cost of life, of living, cost of living, not cost of life, cost of living. It's improving that position. It's providing jobs. It's providing welfare. Okay. Then with the increased revenue collections, we can provide healthcare, hospitals, education. It's a good thing for our country. That is the conversation.
Okay, and Jemba Mlondo, you sent in 2 comments, but I'll read one because of time. He says, thank you very much, P.S. Geraldine. It was worthwhile listening to you candidly discussing where many failed short of facing reality. However, I would like to hear you communicating to authorities the same message. Otherwise, suffocating the trade sector with taxes can only stifle growth while distorting economic gains of recent years. But at the same time, in your conversation, I heard you mention of the big plan that the Ministry of Trade is actually coming up with soon of giving, an investor. You called it a turnkey? I called
it the prospectus, the investments prospectus, which means that Uganda will decide that these are the sectors where we need investment. We are lacking. We are underfunded. There's over demand and less supply of whether it's a good or service. And then any investors who are interested in coming into Uganda and any local business community leaders who are interested would also now look into those areas to invest in those areas. Because most times you realize that when people are giving you help, which is called grants, they tell you, now for us we are going to be investing in institutional mechanisms and governance. And then you're thinking, what is that? For me, I'm an African. I just need to increase production on the ground for food. I want to increase production in accommodation. I want, the realities of my life. So you want to do governance. I want to do food. So in Ethiopia, they decide where you're going to bring money, where they need your help. So yes, thank you very much, you're going to help me, but you're going to help me specifically in the sectors of oil. And I know that when I start turning around and that oil comes, I'm going to be making a lot of money. I will go into the pharmaceuticals because I have the intellectual capabilities to do all these medicines that you need in Europe, and I'll give them to you at a certain value. I have the ability to do cotton. And from the garden all to the way to the fashion house in Paris, I will be collecting a profit of 90% on that World Trade Profit Center. So we want to be where we want to be, and then we tell those people where they can come to help us.
Okay.
Yes, not where they want to help.
Does that also answer, which is the last one, Praksh Sethi, who said the biggest challenge is power required to process specific iron ore. The cost doesn't make commercial sense. Importation gets cheaper. How does the government address this? It's the final one.
So importation gets cheaper?
He's talking about the biggest challenge of power that is required, for example, to process iron ore.
You know what, I think I would ask a person who knows things about power. I just know that it's very expensive. It's a very sensitive subject to talk about umeme.
Briefly, Mr. Asadu.
I can briefly...
And UECDL and all those other agencies involved in power generation and distribution.
I can briefly say that the rates at which manufacturers consume power is lower than any other sector, but there is room for improvement. And that is what should be looked at. How do we improve the rates to go even lower so that we can have a competitive advantage? And I think in that area, alternative sources coming on board, especially for domestic. Domestic, there are so many alternatives that can come up.
Yeah, but Asadu, we are producing more than is required. We are already overproducing and selling to other countries. That's the pains of these people. They are saying, why isn't it cheaper here? Yet we are actually producing and selling
because of the
to other
cost of
countries.
production. So because whatever we are using to produce this power has been got on a loan. Therefore, you need to repay back the loan. So unless we increase the GDP to lower the cost of production, then the end user will have the rate they are enjoying at the moment.
I think
Wow.
I can supplement just a little bit.
What, Mr. My apologies, Mr. Musoke, we've run out of time. And most of the time, my father always tells me that if a conversation ends as energetic as it started, then it means we've really done a great job. So I really appreciate all your submissions, and I'll start with you, Mr. Frank Muramura, in your parting shots, what you would actually have to say, at least for this particular session on trade and investment opportunities in Uganda, as we conclude.
My parting shot is that the purpose of this summit is to encourage people to voluntarily pay taxes. And this actually goes to URA. If you want to encourage people to pay taxes, expedite refunds of what they're entitled to. There is a complication in getting back VAT refunds. So if you don't work on that, then they will not feel wanting to pay. There is also, on the other side of the central government, that when people pay, they expect their money will be used reasonably. But many times we see that it is embezzled and there are no consequences to the embezzlers. I don't know where you will take that, but it is affecting tax compliance.
Okay.
Because nobody wants to pay money which is going to be embezzled and wasted.
Okay.
Then on operations side, for the commissioner, is that we still encounter delays in clearances, and also we have limited supply of electronic monitoring seals, which is a very important tool, but it is causing us delays because they are not sufficient. Even when they are available, they have no charge, so we need to work on that. But they are important for our movement. They improved security of the goods, but they are in short supply.
Okay,
Thank
Mr. Musoke Nagenda, in 30 seconds, your parting shot.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank you for leading us into this session so well in this engagement, my colleagues. Mainly, I request my colleague, we're having an issue about values. Currently, we are engaging URA. We are in a very tricky situation. Let us see how you can facilitate us, and at least the values can be reduced. We are trying to recover businesses which have been negatively affected. Just let me use this chance to talk to supplement about the power.
The 30 seconds.
Yes, I'm going to be so brief. That I've discovered that most of now the industries are destroying our forests because of high power costs. When you visit those industries in Nambave, for example, which is manufacturing blankets, they are using firewood. And now the cost of firewood has gone high. Even we thought that if the power has been reduced, my colleague is also in schools, if you find the amount of firewood being used in schools and in industries, we need to protect our environment. If we are to attain and achieve the strategy of import substitution, reason, when the cost of agriculture goes high, like investing into irrigation, it will need more money, and it will make investing in agriculture very costly.
Okay.
Thank you. I submit.
Madam PS, in 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. For me, mine is very simple. I would just like to call upon us as government agencies to make it painless for our business communities and every single one of our people that is involved in business, manufacturing, and agribusiness. Because just recently when I traveled to Dubai, before lockdown, I went to Dubai, and claiming VAT at the airport, we would queue up and give in our receipts, and someone would sit behind the desk and compute that value, and then they load it onto a Visa card and give it to you. So you would actually access it at any ATM machine in your home country. The last time I went there on the Dubai Expo, they actually just touch it. They use QR codes. They tap your receipts. They are all done in the shops where you've been buying things. And then it's loaded automatically onto a Visa card and given to you. And it's done in less than 1.5 seconds. Now, if we adopt that culture of using technology, you have audit trail. Therefore, it eliminates all the officers who are running around colluding with the public to default on taxes and tax evasion. And therefore, you will be happy, Mr. URA. Okay. Then, of course, with us, if it is in any government department, UNBS, you name it, wherever the people are actually interacting with the government agencies for service, if they have got a high input on technology, it is very hard to beat those systems, and they audit trail themselves somehow. Okay. So for me, and it makes it painless also for the business community. So for me, I'm heavy on that kind of aspect before you bring in trust and all the other values.
Digitization.
Yes.
Mr. Otiama, in 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mabel. I would like to thank URA for organizing this engagement. And I have only one issue to raise again, just requesting customs or URA to empower their staff. Because at the moment, the staffs are actually timid when it comes to issues of valuation. But in other areas, the customer care is superb. Everything is okay. But in terms of empowerment, we want officers to make solid decisions, because at the moment, if an officer is handling a transaction, they peg their decision to the value which is in place, which is actually the minimum value. So I request that you empower your staff to follow the principles and the processes of valuation. Secondly, we are in the process of getting our agency licenses, and we request that you reduce the agency fees, because the agency fee is $400. And some companies, actually during the pandemic, you'll find companies that actually have not carried out any transaction if you check on your system. So I'm requesting that either you forgive the agents and waive the licensing fees,
That's a good one.
or reduce it. Thank you.
Okay, and it was intended, since you set the stage, Mr. Asadu, for this discussion, that you actually end it with your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Mabel. First of all, I want to thank you for steering this discussion very well, and I believe our audience, the viewers and the taxpayers out there, our clients, have enjoyed to watch and receive the information. My concluding remarks is that we continue to thank the public, the tax-paying public, who have made it possible for government to be able to render the services through the collections which they bring into the national treasury. And also, URA is very emphatic on the drive for digitization, where the PS has ably said that she went to Dubai. We have a project running, and we are enforcing EFRIS, which is basically about VAT. Once you are on EFRIS, that is the direction where we are going to be. You don't need anything, because your input-output ratios will be automatically computed, and if you are due for a refund, then that process will be able to be handled well. And on the issue of equipping our staff, it is a continuous program of empowering our people to have the knowledge and skills that are able to serve. And many of the issues that have been raised by the panelists and the viewers, some which have not been dealt with here, we are going to take them back end, and we shall be able to provide answers and continue with this dialogue of engaging. With the engagement, the solutions will always come by. Thank you once again, and continue the voluntary compliance on taxes.
And of course, because of digitization, we can as always hold you accountable, because this same information is going to be on URA TV. So I just had to put that out there. So Mr. Asad Chigozi, thank you so much. Mr. Francis Otiama, of course the PS Geraldine Sally, Mr. Musoke Nagenda from Kasita, and Mr. Frank Muramura. We do appreciate you for this conversation and, of course, the submissions. The URA E-Bomba Summit 2021 continues until the 12th of November. Of course, very thankful to BBS Telefina, of which we were live, Baba TV, and all the URA social media platforms that have been following this conversation and should continue to follow the same conversation next Friday. A little bit of some of the topics you should look forward to in the next dialogue will include alternative dispute resolution, that is the role in domestic revenue mobilization and business formalization, and inclusive resource mobilization for Uganda's economic independence, ongoing until 12th November. My name is Mebo Twegumiezake, and I also thank Olivia Nachigozi Bulega, who has been on sign language interpretation. A very good afternoon.
The Taxpayers Appreciation Season is here. We recognize, celebrate, and award Uganda's top taxpayers. Be part of the online Bomba Your Business Summits and stand the chance to win smartphones, gift sets, hampers, and loads more. Visit our social media pages to find out more.
We appreciate you for paying your taxes. We're proud to be Ugandan.
We celebrate you.
Oh, we celebrate you.
Taxpayers of Uganda. We appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
Uganda together.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Our humble beginnings take place in September 1991 with an amalgamation of 3 different departments in the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Back then, the economy was just getting back onto its feet. Tax collection stood at 6.83% of the GDP, amounting to 180 billion Uganda shillings in the financial year 1991-1992. The URA senior management team comprised of over 60% expatriate staff, and revenue collection depended majorly on cash-based systems. Over the years, we have developed more effective and automated means of revenue administrations, with 95% of URA's processes automated to mitigate corruption and position URA as a business enabler. Revenue collection has grown to 13% of GDP, amounting to 19.26 trillion Uganda shillings.
First, my question goes to the PS Minister of Trade. For many times, the government will emphasize that buy Uganda, build Uganda. But the efforts you have to build the production, local production, and facilitate the local production looks to be slow and with low interest. The reason why I speak like this, local investors are not supported to produce what is worthy to compete on an international market. Like what the chairperson of Kasita, or it is the other one, was speaking about, that if in any case we can rebrand, build Uganda, buy Uganda, cause the system of Ugandans buying their own is still low, and we are producing to sell our products outside Uganda. And the relationship we have with our neighbors is still not good. That it is to an extent that even Kenya at one moment of time said, don't bring maize, don't bring eggs. It means that our products and production is compromised. What plans do you have as government to say that you raise the production, the production? And lastly on that, you've set up institutions to scrutinize the quality of implements and products coming in Uganda. A case in point is agro products, pesticides and what. But fake things are still entering Uganda, and the farmers are spending a lot, and they are producing products which are of low quality. But the effort is by the government, which has not emphasized this. So if it is really worthy, let us run that, and then we can see whether we can make it. Then lastly, still the minister, the PS Minister of Trade, try to give us a summary. COVID-19 has affected Uganda for 2 years. We are going to 3 years. And the local businesses have been closed. Some exports and imports have been carrying out. The president has been saying, trucks, we cannot end trucks from crossing borders. Has Uganda made some money in export and imports than the local business here? And I would love, if it is possible, to make this address in Uganda. Thank you. I'm Samuel.
Thank you so much, Sam. Well, I know I said fire away, but I mean, you can't come with 4 guns, you know, for lack of a better word. If you can keep the questions brief, 1 or 2 maybe per journalist, that will be great. But the PS is going to take care of those questions. And I know for some of the questions, like the last one, it had something to do with exports and imports, and we do have our commissioner who is seated up there, so he'll be able to give us a picture on what it looks like in terms of the trade volumes coming in and going out. Let's get the second question. We shall get 3 for English, then we shall get 3 for Luganda, and that will be it.
Thank you so much. My name is Pedison. I read for Smart 24 TV. A quick one. I just want to know, between URA and Madam PS, who gives tax holidays? And when do you give a tax holiday? Another one. Why are you not doing the same to our local manufacturers? I submit.
Thank you so much. It was a brief, straightforward question. It will be responded to. Let's get the third. Then we shall
afternoon to you. My name is Jimmy Akanshemeza from Google Day TV. I want to ask the PS.
Kindly repeat the name. We didn't quite catch that.
Akanshemeza Jimmy, Google Day TV. I want to ask the PS, how is the government going to end this kind of imbalance between foreign investors and local investors, whereby the foreign investors, when they come here, they are too favored than the local investors, yet would be supporting our own to boost our economy. But when these investors come in Uganda, they're given too much care, too much attention than ours. I submit.
Thank you so much. The question is very similar to the previous question, if you ask me, but the PS will address it. Lydia?
Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Lydia Navakosa from NBS TV. I have only one question going to Kaseta. We are talking about import substitution because every country is doing that. What are some of the things you're doing to make sure that instead of importing into the country, you start thinking about inward to make sure that even the things you're importing, because we know you have a lot of money, you can invest in the country. What are some of the strategies you're going to come up with to make sure that you look inward instead of looking outward? Thank you.
Good question about okulete mali vis-a-vis okukole mali wane Uganda. We like that. So let's get the responses to the English questions, then we shall take another round of questions in Luganda, and that will be it for the members of the Fourth Estate.
Okay, thank you very much. For the first three questions asked by the journalists, they were similar, and they were around foreign investors versus our own, which is really around promotion of bubu and promotion of local investors against the foreign ones. Now, there is a collective effort by government agencies, and it is not just the Ministry of Trade alone. As you can imagine, we have got Ministry of Finance that issues the tax holidays, by the way. As I said to you, most of this tax policy and fiscal policy is set in the Ministry of Finance, our sister agency in government, and it's implemented elsewhere by government agencies again. So I think there is need to be a harmonized collective effort of consultation of all the stakeholders that is involved. And I've said it time and time again, but we still now need to actually make sure that it happens. Because at the moment it's very clear that it's not exactly, there's no evidence that it's happening. Like, for example, when I saw the measuring of textile in kilos, that for me, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't a top-down policy strategy on fiscal policy and taxation policy. It should have been a collaborative effort between government agencies and their stakeholders on the ground. So if we got that in place, I think that is what will resolve such issues in terms of local investments, local trade and industry, and boosting those industries as opposed to the foreign ones. Now, if we actually go into the national development policies on the ground, we have, for example, the Local Content Bill, Act 2019. That one is emphasizing that even if you're coming in as a foreign investor, remember that we talked about CFTA. All these are treaties that have been signed across Africa. We have COMESA, we have East African Community, we have all these treaties that have been signed for people to come in and invest. And likewise, Ugandans are also allowed to go into other countries to invest. So that one we cannot run away from. But most importantly, the fact that we have got some local bills that are then protecting Ugandans. Now the enforcement is the other side, is what is now lacking. I think it's on the enforcement side, because if someone comes in and we say, okay, if you're coming in first year, your local content should be 20% Ugandans. Third year, as they are learning and building capacity. Third year, 30%, 40%, like that. And that is how Ugandans will actually tap into all these foreign direct investments that are coming into our country. So that's the first thing. The next thing is enforcement of standards. We talked about this, and actually these are enforced under UNBS, PVOC. And this is critical. By the way, there are people who don't know about this. They just find out after they've imported goods, say, from China. when someone goes and brings in goods without checking the quality of those goods in China, when you come here and then they are not cleared by UNBS in terms of standards, they are then destroyed at your cost. And the same happens to Ugandans who try to take their fruits, their produce, or anything else to other countries. If they did not pass the proof of conformity verification here in Uganda, and they take them to the other country, then they are destroyed at their costs. And all these are costs to people doing business, and it actually kills local businesses because they end up losing out on some of these things. So there is a lot of sensitization that has got to be done on the part of government and all the other agencies of government. So we need to actually let our people know and avail this information readily on our websites. We go out there and let them know where this information lies. Then COVID, actually, it is very surprising that, say for example, I just stumbled across these figures between East African region, specifically mainly Uganda, and the UAE states. Actually, our cost of exports increased more than 40% in the year of 2021, because it is about 1,800 million US dollars worth of exports to the UAE compared to what we had in 2016, which was about $488 million. So if you check, those figures have actually increased because of those policies we have put in place. So there's a bit of perception, but there's a bit of real figures and real numbers, which we actually look to see that there's actually actual movement and growth in exports to other countries. So for me, those are my main submissions. I think I've answered the questions.
Most of them. Thank you so much, PS, for making the narrative a little bit more clear, especially on the misinformation regarding some of the exports and some of the policies that are in place. Maybe if we could have a little bit more clarity. There was a question, I think it was from Sam, that was that needed a clearer picture in terms of the incentives available to foreign investors and the incentives available to local investors. I think that also needs to be well clarified. Asadu, over to you.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the fourth estate who are doing a good job, because without you, this information would not reach to the intended audience. First of all initiatives or incentives put in place by government cut across. And I did emphasize during our discussion that the incentives are for both local and the international investors. But also on the side of locals, the requirement where you need a foreigner, let's say, to bring $1 million to qualify for an exemption, it is 50% for a local. So what we need to do, like the PS has done, and what URA has always tried to do, especially after every budget reading, is to sensitize people of these incentives that are there, because they are there. If you are a local investor, you benefit from the tax holiday just like a foreigner. It is the same treatment. So it is only that information is not being accessed by people, and avenues like this help people to know that the incentives cut across. There is no discriminatory policy or against the locals in terms of this. And even the investment, as you move outside Greater Kampala, I did mention that there is an advantage for you already when you are doing that. So what we need to do is for our people to get this information. We have put it on the e-platforms, but many of our people are still BBC, so therefore born before computers, and yet they are the ones with the money. So you with the electronic media, the print, then bring out this information and give it to these people. But as URA, we are making it deliberate to make sure that we give as much information to the public as possible so that it can make the cost of doing business easy. We shall do it through the print, brochures, newspapers, the electronic media, and even sensitizing people like we are doing now.
And different languages.
And all these are already in different languages. We go on radio stations all over Uganda in different languages. The brochures are in several languages, but as they say, the information is there, but we shall help you to know that it is there and you are able to access in a language you understand. But also let us use the young people whom we have invested in money to educate, to help us, those who cannot read. I can't spend 2 million Uganda shillings per semester for you to go to a university, and you can't tell me the incentive government is giving. So we are going to use all these avenues. I submit.
Thank you so much.
But can I also
Assistant
just add
Commissioner?
something small, sir?
Sure.
If you also operate a relationship management model as URA, your officers can be turned into tax advisors, and they do tax advisory as well. So not just a clearinghouse, or not just, oh, you've said you come for this, and then, mechanical. You can actually say, you know what, this person has come in to do this, but you know what, you can actually take advantage of this clause because you don't really qualify under this one, which taxes you more. So you can even avail this information by your frontline staff becoming advisors in a relationship, rather than us being just mechanical in terms of the way we implement.
Thank you, PS. And indeed, in certain sectors, we are doing that. You have heard of one-stop centers,
Yes.
which we are government established. And these were all intended to make sure that our people are able to come and get these advisory services in terms of the incentives available from government, the taxation, and even all our regional offices, because we have quite a number, though not every district, but our effort, once the envelope increases, we want to have a footprint in each of the districts of Uganda, given that a number of our people who are deep down there producing cannot access the e-services, so that they can be reached out to serve them. Like in URA Customs, we are implementing the advanced ruling program, where before even you go to buy something, you can be able to have information that if I import this item, what are the taxes involved? What are the laws? Is it restricted? Is it prohibited? What is the kind of market I'm looking at? That information is provided by the agency. I submit.
Thank you so much, Assistant Commissioner. And maybe just to add, Mabel kept on referring to URTV. And URTV has this show that is hosted by yours truly called Show Me the Money, that is about unpacking investment opportunities that are available for Ugandans. You can go to YouTube and you access this information. We hosted the Free Zones Authority. We are looking forward to hosting each one of you to have a deeper breakdown of these things in a language that is best understood by all citizens out there. Yeah. Digital is now, and we are making the most of it to put this information out there. There was a question from Lydia, NBS, specifically to Thaddeus.
Okay, thank you. We at Kasita, we have tried several strategies to make sure that our traders can embrace the import substitution strategy for the government. Like earlier, when we had just started this session, maybe Lydia hadn't just joined us late, but we said that we are partnering with different government agencies. Like URA, they are partners. Again, like National Bureau of Standards, and others, to make sure that we carry out intensive sensitization of mind change or perception change to our business community. That sincerely it's high time the business community to embrace this strategy for business survival. When you don't support the government policy, it's so hard for business survival. Secondly, it has several opportunities, which I clearly tried to outline, and even the challenges. So when we identify the challenges, we make recommendations to the government to see how can they come up and find solutions to these challenges. And given the fact, even like with these summits, I'm sure Ugandans benefit a lot. I just request URA to organize as many summits as possible to make sure we can change Uganda's economy, because we need a lot which we can teach to our members. And currently Kasita is covering the whole countries, all over Uganda is Kasita Uganda, where our partnership with URA is going to help many Ugandans to formalize business. Because when they don't formalize, such incentives like we request the government to avail to local investors, they cannot access. There is no way the government can avail incentives when you don't pay taxes. When you are not registered, you don't have a TIN number, like Assistant Commissioner clearly tried to highlight. So we just need to make sure that we embrace government policies, and then we carry out several sensitization strategies. And currently also we are trying to see how do we engage. We engaged the Uganda Development Bank to ease access to funding. Kasita re-established its financial assistance agency in Kasita to make sure how can we boost the income of our business community, mainly on small-scale production. And we partnered now currently with again Stanbic Bank to make sure how do we facilitate the business community into export promotion. So when you carry out export promotion, already you are embracing import substitution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Asadu wants to come back, please.
Just a small one. Maybe we shall engage Mr. Musoke Kasita. You know, examples speak louder. If you have some of your members who are into production, then we can be able to engage them and give them highlight so that they become examples to others that whereas I'm in import business, this is what I've done, and I'm producing a product and it is on a market and it is for a member from Kasita.
Sure.
So that we can be able to show that it is possible to import but also at the same time produce. And URA will be very good to highlight and even the contribution you are making.
But that's a very brilliant idea. We shall embrace it. Thank you.
Indeed we shall. Now, Thaddeus talked about business formalization and how it becomes very difficult for business that is informal to access all these benefits that the PS and the commissioner, all these benefits that people have been breaking down. And for me, I usually utilize the analogy of high school, boarding school, for those who are in boarding school. That day when visitation, parents have come and they've brought you some food prepared at home, and it's different, of course, from the food that you're accustomed to in the boarding school. And what would happen is that some students would choose to eat their deliciously prepared food under the blanket, while others would share. Now, those who would share would, enjoy the food a little bit more than those who were eating the food from under the blanket, because all sorts of things would happen. Insects would come through because pieces have fallen, and and yet the food is, giving off this aura. So everyone at the end of the day gets to know that this guy is hiding food. So this is a call maybe to business people out there to do business in the open and tap into all these unlimited trading opportunities that come with that. Don't eat food from under the blankets. We are going to have only 2 questions from our Luganda broadcasters. You step over to the altar, and if something has not been addressed, please fire away in Luganda. We get the responses, then after we shall proceed to the next activity.
Nze omulangira Jinju Moses, nkola ne KTV ne Kingdom FM. Ekibuzo kyange ndowooza tusaba just mutulambululemuko bitone ebyo mu Luganda. Ekisooka kyekikyalemeseza ba investor baffe wano mu Uganda okulaakulana. Bagamba nti muwa nnyo omwaganya abantu bali abava ebweru ne baleeta wano ssente. Then ekirala abasuubuzi naddala batwala ebintu ebweru eggwanga. Kenya, Sudan bakatta abantu abawera ddala 30. Kiki ekikoleddwawo nga PS okuva mu gavumenti then ne URA abantu bano ebafiirwa mufaayo nnyo okulaba kubanga bebabawa akasente naye mufaayo nnyo okulaba nti ebintu byabwe ebiba bifiiriziddwa mu kaseera ako mufuna engeri gye mumayambamu n'emisolo egyo emeka otusigiremu ekifaananyi egifiiriziddwa mu kaseera ako then ekirala mwogedde ku bubu ne bubu akyagaanye twagala okumanya PS kyekiganye okulaba nga bubu oyo ateekebwamu amaanyi okuba nga buli kimu kitambula bulungi.
Weebale nnyo omulangira. Tujja funa ekibuuzo ekirala kimu okuva mu bannaffe. Lydia Ndabalumba. Kibuuzo kimu kyokka.
URA tulaba nti nno encouraging abantu okuinvestinga wano sente. Ne URA mukozeewo ki okulaba nti abantu bano naddala bannayuganda abateeka wano ensimbi mubayambako si kusasula ku kamusolo naye ne bizinesi zino okulakulana. Then Kasita tulaba muleeta nnyo ebintu wano mu Uganda naye mukozeewo ki okulaba nti mu kifo ky'okuleeta ebyamaguzi mu Uganda ate musiga wano esente ebyamaguzi bye mukola wano ate mu bitundu ewalala. Thank you.
Weebale nnyo Lydia olw'ekibuuzo ekyo era essaawa eno yennyini bannaffe bajja kuttaanya ensonga ezo.
Weebale nnyo ekibuuzo ekyo naddala omwami abadde wa Kingdom FM KTV okuwa abantu ab'ebweru ettutumu mu bintu byaffe eby'okusiga ensimbi okusingako okubaffe abawaka. Bwekityo bwe kirabika naye ate nze ndowooza nti nno gavumenti eriwo ng'ekwataganyizizza wamu n'ebitongole byonna ebya gavumenti ekiriwo ku ground kisingako ate ku kyobadde ogamba kubanga n'abaffe bennyini akati tulina nga bw'onogamba ebisaawe ebyeramu okusiga industrial parks ebisaawe ebyokuteekamu amakolero ne gundi ne gyetugirira ebintu byaffe byonna ebintu ebyo bannayuganda mwebali bangi nnyo. Nze era ebiseera ebisinga actually bwe ŋŋendayo nsangayo bannayuganda bangi naye era mulimu n'ebitongole ebirala ebiva ebweru mu nsi endala ez'ebweru yadde nga nabo bafuna nga bw'onoogamba nti nno advantage okusinga abaffe abawano n'abaffe bafuna era ne bali ababeera bazze tubagamba nti yaddoze kwata emirimu ebitundu 2 ku 100 mugiwe bannayuganda era abantu abo abasinga mwaga amakolero babeera baffe nga bannayuganda be bakola ate ne bajja ne bagula amasannyalaze gaffe ate ne bajja ne bakozesa enguudo ezaffe n'amazzi agaffe ate nga naffe bannayuganda era naffe tugenda mu nsi zaabwe era naffe ne tukola ki ne tugulawo amakolero eri mu nsi ndala ezaabwe kubanga byebyo ebintu bye twakkaanya awamu ne twagringa mu zino treaties ze tugenze tusayininga ne zino ensi zonna ezisinga. Kati era bw'otunuulira numbers ezo mu butuufu zigenda zeeyongera nti bannayuganda abafunye emigabo mu zino gundi mu bino mugana amakolero bangi okusinga ab'ebweru. Ze numbers ezo ziriwo era nze actually mbadde nsaba muddemu mutuyite ate tutandike obbawera ddala bwino tutambulire wamu nga mukiraba naye ate era sijja kwewakana nti nno tekiriyo nti nno ab'ebweru balabikanga bafunyeemu advantage babisaba oluusi ba agencies baffe nabo ne babayisaawo emanju ebintu ebyo bannaye twandibadde ne tweddako kati ffe nga aba gavumenti naddala abantu abakola mu gavumenti ne muleeta obwenkanya abantu baffe ne basobola okuba nti nabo basobola okukola ki okuleeta ebintu byabwe ne bakompitinga ne bali abakola ebintu abava ebweru. Ekirala wabaddewo ekibuuzo ekirala ndowooza kibadde nakyo nga kikwataganira wamu
kibadde kifaananamuuko n'ekyo
ekyokubiri ekyo kibadde kibuze kakati abasuubuzi abo bannange ekintu ekyo kibi nnyo kubanga nange kenyini ayogera wano actually nze nyina muganda wange era naye bamuttira South Sudan mu 2008 ng'era naye anoonya business naye twabonaabona nnyo era nze kyesinza kutegeera lwaki ekizibu ekyo kikyaliwo naye nze nga nsuubira nti agency eya poliisi ne intelligence zonna ze tuyina zandibadde zitunulira ensonga ezo ne zigezaako okukola relationship n'amawanga ago abasuubuzi baffe gye babonaabonera ne tulaba embeera gye tuyinza okukkaanyaamu okukola trade eyo nga kwega tewali kusika mugwa n'abantu kufiira mu mbeera eyo kwegamba ekyo kiri beyond obusobozi bwange kaŋŋambe naye ng'ate kyenyinza okukola kwe kuba omulanga ew'abantu baffe abali mu government naddala abakola enforcement and protection of human rights okukola kye bali supposed okukola n'okubuuliriza lwaki ebintu ebyo bibeerayo ne bagezaako okukola ki okubistopinga.
Nebaziza nnyo ebibuuzo ebyo ebiyamba abantu baffe abawuliriza n'abakola emirimu okulaba nga bongera okunyonyoka ensonga ze tuba twogedde mu lufuutifuuti ne tuziza mu Luganda. Ekisooka njagala okukakasa abantu bonna abaagala okukola emirimu egy'enjawulo mu Uganda nti amateeka ge tulina tegasosola oba munnayuganda oba mugwira nga bwe batera okiyita omuntu avudde ebweru. Amateeka gano weegali agawe ebintu ebiweebwa omunnayuganda okukola ekyuma ekisogola omubisi ge gamu n'agaweebwa ow'ebweru. Naye ekizibu kyendaba ekikyasingidde eddala ekiriwo nti abantu baffe tebannafuna mawulire gano kubatuukako nti kino kyosobola okukola. Nga gavumenti kaakati kye tuliko ennyo kwe kugamba nti nno tumenyeemenye tutya ensonga zino ezikwatagana ku makolero n'engeri gy'oteekawo amakolero ne biki gavumenti byekuwa omuntu wa bulijjo asobole okuba ng'abimanya. Kuba bwe tunaaba tukoze ekyo tujja kuba tutuuka ku muntu wa bulijjo engeri emu gye tulina nga bwe muzze wano bwe mulaba bwe tuli tuwandiika obutabo obw'enjawulo mu nnimi ez'enjawulo abantu baffe basobole okulaba nga bategeera ensonga zino nti weeziri. Ate n'ebintu bino ebyoga nti omusolo gukugibbwako kumala ebbanga nga lya myaka 10 gwowe avudde ebweru n'owa wano era likwatako kyekimu. So nze ndowooza nti bwe tuneeyongera enkola eno ey'okutambuza amawulire abantu baffe bajja kwongera okumanya nti emirimu gino weegiri. Ate era nga bw'omanyi nti tulina n'ekitongole kiramba oba abantu abeekwatira awamu aba Uganda Manufacturers Association bangi abantu bwe baba nga bayingidde ebibiina bino ebibayambako okubatuukako okusinziira ku mitendera gyabwe kiyamba nnyo. Tulina ebitongole ng'ebya small scale entrepreneurs. Ebitongole ebyo bwe twongera obiteekamu amaanyi n'okubiwa amawulire gano bo basobola okubituusa ku bantu baabwe kuba bonna tebasobola kuba ku TV mulundi gumu oba ku radio. Ensonga eyo ejja kuba egguka bulungi. Ku baganda baffe abatwala ebintu ebweru ne wabaawo ensonga emu oba endala. Ekisooka nti ebintu byonna ebitwalibwa ebweru okuggyako ebitono nnyo nga bye nagayo ebyennyanja amaliba ne zaabu n'ebirala ebyobugagga ebiva mu ttaka ebisasulayo omusolo ng'otwala ebweru. Bw'oba otwala ebintu ebweru tetukuggyako musolo gwonna. Naye ffe nga aba Uganda Revenue Authority n'ebitongole ebirala ebya gavumenti tukuyambako okulaba nga otwala ebintu ebyo ne bitambuzibwa bulungi ne bituuka mu nsi eyo. Naye kati ngera bwe bakyogeddeko nti ffe nga bannayuganda abatwala ebintu ebweru ekisooka tulina okugoberera amateeka ga gavumenti n'okwewandiisa kuba bw'ogenda kinnoomu mu nsi gy'otamanyi nga tolina gw'osobola kukubira nduulu kizibu. Naye n'olwekyo bwe tuba nga tukoze ebibiina eby'okwegatta ne tugamba nti abagenda e South Sudan tulina association yaffe gye tukoze nti bano batwala bintu South Sudan kiki tulina okukola nti bwe tuba tugenze South Sudan olw'embeera oba eriyo bweti tulina kukola bwe tuti. bw'oba otuuseeko ensonga osobola okukubira gundi naye omuntu okuyingira obuyingizi mu nsi nga ne bw'oba ofunye ensonga tolina gw'oyinza kukubira. I think okwegatta okwo kujja tuyamba okukolagana obulungi n'ebitongole bya security ate okwongera okulaba nga gavumenti bwe yateekawo abantu baffe kati babawerekera naye nga si kye twandiyagadde naye embeera nti bweriwo bawerekerwa naye tebajja kuwerekera kinnoomu. N'olwekyo tulina okwegatta ndaba aba transport associations weeziri okwegatta okwo bwe mubeera ekitole ne bwe wabaawo ensonga nga mugiggusa mu gavumenti emu oba endala babawuliriza kuba omulanga guba gwa muzindo gwe muba mutuusiza okusinga gwe okubanga osuubula kinnoomu. Tweyanza.
Tweyanziza nnyo mukulu Asadu Kigozi era tusiimidde ddala engeri gy'ottaanyiza ensonga eyo wamu ne PS. Mu mwoyo gwo era ndowooza ebbomba ekitundu ekyokusatu tugipise bulungi era nga bannaffe abali mu bizinesi bafunye ebingi ebyokuyiga. Wali ekibuuzo? Okay.
Kasita.
Kasita mu Luganda. Ekibuuzo ekyo kiddemu ekya Lydia.
Okay, webale nnyo. Nsuubira kano kusaba busabi abatesitesi ndowooza tufuneyo ne sessions ez'Oluganda nina abamembers bange abaali yagadde ennyo session ate nazo ez'Oluganda. Then njagala okwebaza mukyala Lydia naye nategeezezaako enteekateeka eno nga yakatandika nti nga Kasiita twawagira enteekateeka eno era nga tumaze okulaba emigaso egiri mu nteekateeka y'okukolera ebintu wano ne tutandika enteekateeka eyo ey'okusomesa bannayuganda okulaba nti baganyulwa mu nteekateeka eno. Tetwakoma ku ekyo tutandise okufuna enkolagana n'ebitongole eby'enjawulo ebya gavumenti omuli URA n'ekitongole eky'omutindo era ebitongole bino bitaddewo enkyukakyuka nnyingi. Bw'otuuka kati mu National Bureau of Standards okulaga omutindo okuyambako okutereeza omutindo bakoledde ddala omulimu omunene. Bwe kituuka mu Uganda Revenue Authority bakoledde ddala omulimu omunene. Kye tusuubira nti n'ebirala ebikyabulamu tuvuddengayo nga tugamba gavumenti tereeza wano kakati ekizibu ky'essente wano ze twewulirako ziri waggulu tugamba tetusobola kukompitinga nabali bannaffe ng'amagoba gali waggulu era nga bwe tugezaako okulaba nti munnayuganda aganyirwa atya okufuna ssente asobole naye okutandikawo amakolero gano. Ensonga endala gye tubadde tugezaako ennyo kwe kulaba nti naffe ffennyini nga Kasiita tuteekawo ensawo ey'essente okuyambako abamu ddala abatannaba kutuuka ku level efuna ssente nga mu banks kubanga nabo tubayambako okutandikawo enkola ey'obukolero obutonotono. Nategeeza nti tugenda n'okufuna entegeeragana ddala mu buwandiike ne Ministry eya Science eri mu State House okulaba nti be bavumbula nabyo tubiteeka tutya okulaba nti tubikolamu ssente kubanga ffe abasuubuzi we tulaba awali emikisa egy'okukola amagoba we tuteeka ssente ate ekikolera eggwanga ne URA neesanyuka nti bwe tuteekawo ssente bizinesi neekula ekitegeeza ensawo y'eggwanga egaziwa eggwanga ne lifunira ddala emisolo egisobola okutwala eggwanga mu maaso naye nga Kasiita bwetwala Uganda yonna tuli mu nteeseganya ne URA okulaba nti tuyambako ne bannaffe abalala okwetereeza okulaba nti oweewandiisa n'ofuna tini namba business name erinnya ne batuli ku level ya company okulaba ng'osobola okukozesa oba okuganyulwa mu nteekateeka zino gavumenti gye tusaba ebiseera ebisinga okutuyambako. Kijja kubeera kizibu gavumenti okuyambako ng'erabira ddala teri ssuubi lyakuwa munnayuganda mulimu teri ssuubi lya kusasula misolo terina ssuubi lya kutereeza enkola gye tukolamu emirimu gyaffe. Njagala kwongerako katono ku Sudaani Kasiita twaganye bulungi nnyo wamu okulaba nti tuteeka pressure ku gavumenti twongera okusaba president ayongere amaanyi okukwatagana ne president wa Sudan era waliwo akakisa kati embeera esobozesa omuntu okusuubula naye ate tetwagala kiterere kiddemu tusuubira nti enteeseganya eyo nti bwe tusaba pulezidenti n'akikwasaganya ate ye eryakkirizibwa bamukkiririzaamu nnyo ate kijja kutwongeza okutugondezaamu tukole emirimu gyaffe n'ebintu byaffe tusobole okusigala nga tubitundayo. Mwebale nnyo.
Thank you so much, Thaddeus, for explaining in very good Luganda for the benefit of our viewers of the local language broadcasters. We don't take it for granted, and I would like to take this opportunity to profoundly appreciate all our panelists for making the time to come here and share with the rest of Uganda about this very important discussion on trade. I would also like to appreciate in a very special way Mebo Twegume Zake for taking time off her TV to come and moderate this session live on your TV. We appreciate that and we don't take it for granted. We salute all the members of the Fourth Estate, every business reporter that is in the room, be it from radio or print or TV. We appreciate the contribution that you are making towards ensuring that every Ugandan gets to fully understand their rights, their responsibilities, and their contribution towards taking the country forward. Of course, as is the norm, we usually have some flowers that the team behind Bomba Ya Business puts together to appreciate our panelists, and this is the moment, and we shall request the Honorable Asadu to take center stage and appreciate the panelists who have come here today to ensure that Ugandans get to partake of this beautiful offering that is Bomba Ya Business. Yes. And of course we shall start with Frank Muramura, who is a solid investor, a big-time player in the industry of cargo transport inland and abroad, a big-time apple farmer, and a guy who has shared so much that we could learn from and take our businesses to the next level. Frank, thank you so much for making the time. You will receive your flowers. Flowers in honor of Frank for sparing his time to share his knowledge with all of us. Clap if you can, or salute, it is okay. And next, of course, is the one and only Thaddeus Musoke Nagenda, who is taking Kasita countrywide. It is no longer about Kampala city. It is now a national entity that it's taking care of the needs and interests of traders. And the next round of flowers go to a lady who has made this discussion quite colorful, if you asked me. And it's none other than the PS of the Ministry of Trade, Geraldine Sali. We are looking forward to having more and more discussions of this ilk with you and your team. The guy who is going to receive his flowers next, for the record, was the very first individual to get on EFRIS. I'll never forget that. His company, Geroma, was the very first company to sign on to EFRIS. He has always been positive about innovation positive about these policy changes, and he's extremely supportive, and we appreciate him. Francis Otiama, thank you so much for making the time to come and share with Ugandans. And of course, the one and only Mebo Tegume Zake, for making sure that we have a very colorful discussion. There are flowers for you. And last but not least, we have some flowers for our very own Assistant Commissioner Field Services and the Acting Supervisor Tax Education will do the honors to hand over the flowers to Mr. Asadu, truly one of a kind. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this particular Bomba Ya Business episode. And I must tell you to make time for episode number 4, which is going to be about that monkey that we call the alternative dispute resolution. We shall get to unpack it. We shall get to listen to people who have benefited from it. And we shall be able to ensure that every Ugandan at the end of the day gets to understand exactly how it works and how it is actually changing the lives of many business players. We shall have a group photo, which is that sign that indeed curtains have come down on this particular bomba. See you around next Friday. Same time, same place, online. Asante sana. For God and my country. And of course, our panelists will be guided to the place where they're going to have a very brief meeting following the success of this engagement, while for the rest of us, there is something right outside that has been prepared for us to devour.
Seamless. Seamless.